Good morning, everyone. This is Jim Howell at the Board of County Commissioner meeting. This is May the 11th, 2016. Thank you for being here today. Welcome to everyone in the audience and for those on TV and on streaming live on the internet and, of course, on YouTube later on. We do broadcast these meetings a number of different ways, but thank you for being a part of our meeting today. We have a lot planned. This is one of the busier agendas we've ever had since I've been on the commission board here. It's probably one of the busiest meetings I think we've ever had scheduled together. So a lot going on. I just wanted to say I was excited to go out to the elephant exhibit last night. It was tremendously good weather. The elephants are very, very, very busy. They had a donors night last night, and some of the commissioners were able to go out there and see what's going on out there at the elephant exhibit. It was really exciting to see that. I'm excited for the community. I believe the grand opening for that for the public, for everyone, I believe, is just a couple weeks away. So please get excited about that. I hope you'll plan to go out there. We have a lot going on in this meeting today. We've got a couple of hearings. We've got some proclamations and just a lot of other business. We're going to be talking about Law Enforcement Training Center today, amongst a bunch of other items as well. So I'd like to go ahead and just go ahead and get busy with this meeting. So I'd like to go ahead and call to order the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners for the date of May the 11th, 2016. Madam Clerk, first item, please.
Invocation to be led by Pastor Joplin Emberson, Crossway Church. Please remain standing for the flag salute.
Father, we come this day and we are grateful to live in this community. Father, we're grateful for those that are in positions of leadership, and we pray, God, that you'd give them wisdom in the decisions they have to make. We pray, God, for your protection upon those who keep us safe, Lord. We pray for our firefighters, our police department, our first responders, Lord. And God, we pray today for this meeting. God, that you would give wisdom to those making decisions. God, that it would be in the best interest of the people of this community, and that this community would be a place where we can raise our families in safety for years to come. Lord, we thank you for these things. We ask them in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Joplin Emberson, thank you for being here today. It was a nice prayer. We are going to be talking about public safety quite a lot today, so glad you put that into your prayer as well. All right. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Unruh?
Present.
Commissioner Norton?
Present.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Present.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Present.
Chairman Howell?
Present. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public information or announcements?
Good morning, Commissioners. I am Kate Flavin, Interim Public Information Officer. I have a few things to remind you about this morning. We have the Elephants of the Zambezi River Valley ribbon cutting ceremony at the end of this month, Friday the 27th at 10 a.m. at the zoo. Also that weekend at Exploration Place, Dinosaurs in Motion will finally be here for the summer. And finally, the Sedgwick County Election Office is currently recruiting election workers for this year's elections. And for more information on how to become involved in this process and actually be an election worker with the election office, we have information on our website, www.sedgwickcounty.org. And you'll find it here on our homepage. It'll be right here at the kind of towards the middle of it, called Trending Topics and Poll Workers Needed. So there you can find out more information on how to be involved in this process.
Wonderful. Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate the announcements this morning. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public agenda?
All right. I do have 4 people signed up to speak this morning. I'd like to go and hear from them. And
I might clarify if they're not wanting to speak.
I will tell you, we do have an item coming up here in a little bit for it's a hearing for Redmond Estates, and if you want to speak on that topic, it might be more appropriate for you to wait until we get to that agenda item. I'd be glad to give you the opportunity to speak at that time. So if you're not here to speak for Redmond Estates, I'd like to have you up here now. There's, I believe, looking at my list here, it looks like all 4 of the ones that signed up are here for Redmond Estates. So I think, is there anybody else here that would like to speak for a public comment this morning before we get on with the next agenda item? All right. We do give our audience members a chance to speak on business items as they come up in the agenda, so you'll still have a chance to speak later on specific items that come up during the agenda. All right, so we do have some proclamations this morning. Is our next item.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, regular meeting minutes of March 9th, 2016.
Thank you for the correction there. Appreciate that. We do have meeting minutes from March the 9th, March the 16th, March the 23rd, April the 6th, April the 13th, and April the 18th, where all commissioners were present. I'd like to make a motion we would accept minutes for all 6 meetings if that's acceptable to the commissioners.
I'll be happy to second it.
All right. All those in, let's see. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Renshaw?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Proclamations. Item G, proclamation declaring Correctional Officers Week.
All right. Commissioners, I do have a proclamation I would like to read. It says, whereas in 1984, then President Ronald Reagan signed Proclamation 5187, creating National Correction Officers Week. The first full week in May has since been recognized as National Correction Officers Week to honor the work of correctional officers and correctional personnel nationwide. And whereas the dedication of these correctional officers and detention deputies who serve our community quietly, taking on the very difficult and dangerous duties, and whereas we would be unable to operate our adult and juvenile detention facilities and community correctional programs without the hard work of these professionals and staff these facilities 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, and whereas Sedgwick County, Kansas is pleased to join in celebrating Correctional Officers Week, recognizing these men and women who risk their lives to serve so diligently and faithfully. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Jim Howell, Chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim the week of May 1st through the 7th, 2016 as Correctional Officers Week in Sedgwick County, and encourage all citizens to honor and show sincere appreciation for correctional officers who make it possible to keep the detention and correctional facilities safe each day. Commissioner, what's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the proclamation.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I see no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. To receive this proclamation, I do have, I believe in the audience, is Sheriff Jeff Easter here this morning? He is. There you go. I'd like to ask the Sheriff to come and say a couple of words, please.
Thank you, ma'am. We appreciate the commissioners recognizing Corrections Week. The deputies that work inside there are very committed to the job that they do, are very committed to serving the citizens of Sedgwick County, and we appreciate you recognizing that. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate what they do very, very much. Commissioner Norton has comments?
Thank you, Sheriff. You only have to tour the jail once or twice and know that correction officers really do some yeoman's work in our community. They deal with people that, many of them that are bad people, and many of them that have made mistakes and are going to be incarcerated for a while, and they still have to work with both populations under extreme conditions sometimes. So I honor all of them for the work that they do. Please pass that on to them, because we know it is not easy work under conditions where people are in some of the worst conditions of their life, as far as what they've done, the decisions they've made, and they still have to treat them like human beings and make sure that they're safe and can get out and be functional back in society. We really appreciate that.
Thank you, sir.
Seeing no other comments, I just want to say thank you again. I would like to just say I agree with the previous comments, and I know that I also visited the jail a number of times up to this point, and I don't want to be behind the windows or the bars in there. I would like to be on the other side with the detention deputies.
Just taking a tour.
Yeah, it's an interesting place to visit, and I'll tell you that I appreciate what those folks do over there. It is certainly a tough job.
I appreciate that, sir.
My thankfulness to them.
We appreciate that.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item H, proclamation declaring Police Week.
All right, we do have another proclamation related to law enforcement and folks. This one, let me go ahead and read this one here. It says, whereas in 1962, the United States Congress first passed Public Law 87-726, designating May the 15th of each year as Peace Officers Memorial Day, honoring federal, state, and local officers who have been killed or disabled in the line of duty. and the corresponding week as Police Week. And whereas over the years, devoted law enforcement officers of America have courageously sacrificed their personal safety while working on behalf of the people, and whereas because of their steadfast efforts to enforce our laws, we as citizens can enjoy a system of peace and order, and whereas Sedgwick County desires to honor the valor, service, and dedication of not only its own sheriff's deputies, but peace officers everywhere. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jim Howell, Chairman of the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim May 15th through 21st, 2016 as Police Week in Sedgwick County, and call upon our citizens to show their sincere appreciation for the many law enforcement officers of Sedgwick County, past and present, and their legacy of humble, dedicated service to the community. Commissioners, what's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt the proclamation.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes once again. Again, I have Sheriff Easter here to receive this proclamation. And Sheriff, if you'd like to say anything else, we'd sure love to hear from you on this one as well.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, we do appreciate the proclamation and every year that it takes place. I want to make sure and invite everyone here, including the commissioners. Next Friday is the Law Enforcement Memorial that's held across the street with the Joint Memorial in front of the City Building. And that's a time to remember the folks that have given their lives for this community. Unfortunately, a couple of days ago, a Kansas City police officer was shot and killed, and it reminds us of the dangers that we face every day. Again, the men and women of the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Office dedicate their lives to protecting the citizens of Sedgwick County, and we appreciate the proclamation and the recognition of those sacrifices that we do every day. So thank you again for your kind words.
Thank you, Sheriff Easter. We do have some comments from commissioners. Commissioner Peterjohn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In light of the fact that the events that you just mentioned, and unfortunately it's one of a number that have occurred this year, and the fact that at other levels of government there have not been the public statements stated by our leadership that I think should have been made in recognition of the valor and the dedication for those officers who have given their lives trying to keep their communities safe. While my worst day as a commissioner was the day when we lost Deputy Etheridge, and I hope that nothing like that occurs in the future. But unfortunately, looking at the past, we do face these challenges, and I, as an elected official, and I think elected officials across the state recognize the hard work, dedication, and 24/7 activities of law enforcement officers, and whether they're commissioned in your road patrol or detention related. I wanted to publicly provide a commendation for you today, and do plan to attend the event Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Norton?
Well, thank you, Sheriff. I know this is a poignant time for your family, as well as many families in our community. If you've never been to the Law Enforcement Memorial Service, I would urge you to go at some time. The calling of the names and the last call brings to mind how important public safety is, and how first responders risk their life or in harm's way for our public safety every day. And we hate these events that might happen in our community, but we know in today's society, with the ills that we do have, that public safety is critically important, and that we need strong training and law enforcement folks to be sure they're out on the streets protecting our public every day. And the memorial brings to mind that they're in harm's way to protect our community every day. And we please pass on to everyone that we really appreciate that.
We will. Thank you.
Well, Sheriff, I just want to say, there's no other comments at the moment, but I want to say thank you so much for being a leader in this community. We have got a great sheriff's department. I'm very, very impressed with the professionalism and the kindness they show. I've seen them in their role interfacing with people around the community. I just love what they do. They give me a lot of confidence that they're providing the best public safety possible. Of course, we're going to be talking about Law Enforcement Training Center today, and so it's important, I think, that we acknowledge the fact that we have a great department. We've done a great job in the past. We're looking forward to finding innovative ways to do that in the future. But I just want to say appreciate what they do for our community. I'd like to say I do remember also the story about your family's loss years ago. That has never been forgotten, and I want to say just want to say appreciate what you do there. So, with that, I see no other comments. I think we're
Appreciate
on to
it.
the next item here. Next item, please.
Item I, proclamation declaring National Public Works Week.
Commissioners, I do have another proclamation to read. It says, whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as streets, highways, bridges, drainage improvements, environmental services, household hazardous waste, and noxious weed control. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on these facilities and services. And whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is especially dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is substantially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work that they perform. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Jim Howell, Chairman of the Board of Sedgwick County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim May the 15th through the 21st of 2016 as National Public Works Week in Sedgwick County, and urge all citizens and citizens of civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in public works and to recognize the contributions which makes public works officials make every day to our health, safety, and comfort the quality of life. Commissioners, what's the will of the board?
Move we adopt the proclamation.
Second.
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second, and see no discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. I'd like to give this to Public Works Director David Spears, and invite you to say a few things, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, David Spears, Director of Public Works. Since 1960, APWA, which is American Public Works Association, has sponsored National Public Works Week across North America. Our more than 29,000 members in the United States and Canada use this week to energize and educate the public on the importance of the contribution of public works to their daily lives. Planning, building, managing, and operating the heart of our local communities and building the quality of life. There would be no community without the quality of life Public Works provides. There would be no community to police and protect, no public to lead or represent. This year's theme, Public Works Always There, showcases the pervasiveness of our department. Communities depend on Public Works, and the men and women of the profession are always there and always ready. Thank you for the proclamation. Here's the poster this year.
That's fantastic. Is that going to be hung on your office walls, or where's that going to be?
We'll leave it out here for a couple of weeks, and then we have all of them from the past years down at Public Works.
I see. Well, that's great. It's a beautiful piece of art there. Who designed the artwork today?
It's from, I don't know, it's from the national
I see.
Folks that put all this together.
It's well done. Well, that looks beautiful.
One side note, tomorrow evening, the state APWA conference is in Newton, Kansas, and I will be there to receive an award for our first place bridge up at Mount Hope over the Arkansas River on 279th Street West, and we won first place in the state on that. It will now be entered into the national tournament, so to speak, and we'll see what happens. So I just wanted to throw that out too.
Thank you. We have a couple of comments from some commissioners. Commissioner Norton?
Well, this is my 16th presentation. Excuse me, Dave, and I'm sad that you didn't say your one line that you always say.
Well, I have it on there. Infrastructure is the mother's milk of economic development. It's in red at the bottom of the speech.
Okay, I just wanted to afford you the chance to be able to say it because I want to stay consistent after 16 years. Well, we so honor what Public Works does, and I truly believe that good infrastructure is one of the core values that we should always have at Sedgwick County. Not only out in the unincorporated areas, but partnerships with the small cities, cities of the third, second, and third class, and the city of Wichita. It is very, very important to do those projects that keep our people mobile, moving around, and an ability to use the public infrastructure with a safe manner and a quick manner. So thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you.
And pass that on to your staff. I see some of them here, but please pass that on to them.
I will.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to add on, certainly agree with Commissioner Norton's comments and concerning second and third class cities, and also the townships that we have across this county that often rely on Public Works. And Dave, I figured you'd work in somewhere about 582 bridges and 600 miles of road, but since you didn't do it, I'm gonna throw those numbers out because it's an important point, and wanted to congratulate all the folks down at Public Works, and particularly those who were involved in that bridge project that won the award. But I don't know how you handled it, but the fact that I think we had a record low usage for salt and sand during this season also helped. So I don't know how you worked that one, but
Can't take credit for that.
anyway, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments as well. I'd like to just say, from the community's perspective, it's hard to know which road is a county road, which road is a township road, which road is a state road or a local government road. Sometimes there's a lot of sentiment. Perhaps people just get frustrated because they see a pothole here or they see a road construction there. But the reality is, I think the county does the best. From anything I've ever seen so far, the state highways, I think, are tremendous amount of work for the state to maintain. The cities, I think, struggle with trying to keep their roads in good repair. I think the county does a tremendously great job. Our roads are in very, very good shape, and I know this just speaks well of you that you've done a great job over a very long period of time to maintain these roads, and you've advocated for the right things. You've made the best decisions, and I'm just extremely impressed with what you've done so far. I know you have great people, and I know that this is the time that they're extremely busy. Probably the busiest time of year right now, as you have so many projects going on simultaneously.
Yes.
So I just want to say thank you for being a good leader of your department and for providing the best roads for our community to enjoy. I just hope that they understand that the county roads, which roads are county roads, so they give us credit for that. And if they get mad about a road, maybe it's not our road. So with that, any other comments?
Thank you for those comments.
Okay, seeing no other comments. Thank you so much, David Spears. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Appointments. Item J, resolution appointing Sanford Alexander to the Wichita-Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board.
All right.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Eric Yost, County Councilor. Item J is a resolution reappointing Sanford Alexander to the Wichita-Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board. He is the appointment of Commissioner UNRUH. The paperwork appears to be in order, and I would urge adoption of the resolution.
Counselor, it's similar to item K. Would it be reasonable for us to do them at the one time?
That would be fine. Item K is the reappointment of Mr. Brian Powers to that same board, the Sedgwick County Access Advisory Board. Mr. Powers would be Commissioner Peterjohn's reappointment.
All right, what's the will of the board?
I move we approve the resolutions.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranza?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. Thank you for that. And are either one of them here? I don't think they're here. We'll deal with the paperwork and other things with them later on. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
New business. Item L, project search graduation.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeanette Livingston with the Sedgwick County Developmental Disability Organization, or SCDDO. Thank you so much for having me here today to recognize our 2016 graduating class of Project Search interns. Project Search is an innovative program that provides real-life work experience for students with disabilities in their final year of school. Sedgwick County has partnered with USD 259 for 4 years on the program. Interns do 3 10-week rotations, working 20 hours a week in a variety of county departments. In 2016, we hosted 6 interns in 8 different county departments, all based on their skills and abilities, including Andrew Blakely. Andrew stocked supplies, faced shelves, provided customer service and light custodial at Explore Store at Exploration Place. He also assembled booklets and assisted with mailings in the print shop mailroom, and then worked in the dining room at Catholic Care Center. Andrew enjoys volunteering with the elderly, reading books, and has an extraordinary memory. He's looking for a position where he can work with the elderly. Dontre Brooks. While an intern, Dontre has entered data at the SCDDO. He's assembled booklets and ran machines at the print shop, washed dishes, prepared foods, and served meals at corrections, and he must have been very good at that because they have hired him part-time. Dontre is an amazing graphic artist and enjoys sports. Kevin Cabrales. Kevin worked as a custodial assistant at Exploration Place, did file prep at the Department of Corrections, and has entered data for the SCDDO. Kevin is an excellent, dependable worker and a gifted photographer. Kevin has been hired on at Bitco. William Castile. William has done data entry, assisted with recruit assessments at the Sheriff's Department. He did file prep at Corrections and data entry and custodial at our department, the SCDDO. William has an engaging personality and an enthusiasm for all things firefighting. He is currently looking for a job in customer service. Chris Phillips. Okay. Chris is assisted with data entry at the Sheriff's Department. He did data entry and recruit assessments at the Sheriff's Office as well. He's done records management and archiving at the Housing Program at the Department on Aging, stocking, custodial, and cashier at Explore Store, as well as demonstrations and customer assistance at Exploration Place. He's also washed dishes, prepared, and served food at Corrections. Chris currently works part-time at Olive Garden and enjoys sports and fast cars. He's looking for more work in the customer service field. Thanks. And Darius Quick. Darius processed mail-in tag registrations at the tag office. He's done data entry and file management with the Department on Aging and assisted in a variety of tasks in the print shop and mailroom. Darius enjoys sports and living in the country, and he recently obtained a job at Goodwill. This was his first week on the job. We have a great set of interns for 2016. For 2017, we're expecting between 10 and 12 interns, so I will probably be approaching other county departments looking to develop additional internships. With that in mind, I'd like to invite Linda Kazir, with our Sedgwick County Treasurer, to talk about her department's experience with Project Search.
Good morning, Commissioners. Linda Kazire, Sedgwick County Treasurer. We began with Project Search a couple of years ago. We had 3 wonderful interns. We had a job opening come up at the tag office, and Miss Ashley Thompson did the testing, passed all of her tests with flying colors, had an interview, and was hired full-time in Sedgwick County 1 year ago today. And Ashley, if you renew your tags online, this young lady right here is the one that screens you for delinquent taxes or return checks. It processes your renewal, gets it in the mail. She also works our personalized plates, our reorders. And Ashley, I'd like for you to say just a few things to the commissioners about what you do.
Yes, I am dependable and I have good organizational skills, and I'm always there on time. And I check to make sure the work is completed before moving on to a new task. And thank you so much, Tim Norton.
Are you going to thank the others?
Thank you so much, Tim Norton, Carl, Peter, John, Jim Howell, Richard, Wen, Sue, Dave, Unruh.
Very good. Very good. You did very good.
All right.
I'd like to encourage all the county departments to at least take the experience firsthand and let the interns come and work. I know Darius worked at the tag office. He did an excellent job. You know, it's a good program. I firmly believe in it. I think that it's a way to get people engaged in full-time work. And I just really appreciated the opportunity that CDDO, thank you, Tim and Jeanette, for asking us to host some interns, and I'm looking forward to this next school year. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. Commissioners, do you have any comments this morning? Okay. I would make a motion we receive and file.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Commissioner Peter John.
Yes, I wanted to thank each and every one of the individuals who were recognized here today and want to wish them well as they venture out. And I think it's just been a wonderful experience, and I appreciate all of your comments and want to wish you the best. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. I would also say I'm very, very impressed. I thank you for the program. I think it's a good vision that you have, that you find folks that are able to do these things and give them a chance. You know, they're doing real work, and it's important that they have that opportunity. I'm glad that the county is looking for ways to connect these folks with positions that we have open in our county. I think it's important. I love what you're providing in terms of that connection for this internship. I am curious, do they get while they're doing the interning? I assume they do get paid for that.
No, it's an unpaid internship.
Unpaid position. Okay.
And so, I mean, they're also foregoing all those school things that you would do in your final year in order to invest in their future.
So they get credit for the internship within their school
program.
Programs. Okay. But then once we hire them, I mean, Ashley, she's making money though.
Oh, she is making money.
I'm sure she's making good money. All right. All right. And maybe the others will as well. Hey, well, thank you so much for the program. We do have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peter John?
Aye.
Commissioner Ransall?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. Thank you again. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item M, contract for a household hazardous waste remote collection event on May 14, 2016 for City of Goddard, Kansas.
Good morning, Commissioners. Susan Erlenwine, Department of Environmental Resources. Sedgwick County has a household hazardous waste facility. This is a place where residents can take unwanted oils, paints, solvents, cleaners, old gasoline, even fluorescent light bulbs for proper and safe disposal and recycling. This facility is located at 801 Stillwell, and it is open Tuesday through Friday, 9 to 5, and Saturday from 9 to 3. But in order to better serve our community, we also have 5 remote household hazardous waste collection events every year. This Saturday is our second remote event. It's going to be located in Goddard, and it will be at the Goddard City Shop Saturday the 14th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. That city shop is located at 1206 South 199th Street West. This is approximately half a mile north of Highway 54 on the east side of 199th. So we encourage anyone in the area, western part of the county, who has unwanted household hazardous waste to take the material to this remote collection this Saturday. I'm hoping for good weather. We have a list of what we will accept or won't accept on our website, or if people have a question, they can call 660-7464. And again, visit the website, sedgwickcounty.org. The City Council of Goddard approved the contract that's before you today, and I'd recommend your approval and ask the chairman to sign, and I'll be willing to answer any questions.
All right, well, thank you for the presentation. Commissioners, what's the will of the board? Commissioner Peter John?
I make a motion that we approve the contract and proceed.
Very good.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I would just say this is a good program, taking this opportunity out to the public in their own communities. I think probably get some stuff collected up that otherwise would never make it to Stillwell.
That's true.
That stuff gets put in the trash or gets flushed down the toilet, gets buried in the backyard, or gets ignored, and frankly, that's not good for the community. We need the stuff taken care of properly. And so by having this resource at Stillwell, but then also in the community close to where people live, I think it's just it's a great resource, great opportunity, and a better way to handle this.
Right. The more convenient you can make it, the better.
Did you say that you take old medicines as well?
Right, we'll take prescription medicines and over-the-counter medicines as long as they're not controlled. Controlled would be what you need, like pain, Lortabs, codeines, morphines, anything like that we will not take. We need sheriff's officers there for that. But besides that, the typical prescriptions over-the-counter we will take.
Very good. And I understand also that the facility there at Stowell also resells some of the stuff that people turn in that has value. I mean, there's paint, there's other things that they can get.
Well, we have a swap and shop area, and when materials come in that are in good condition, for example, we'd open the cans of paint, make sure it's not moldy, that the labels are readable. We'll put those out on the shelf to help people take those. People get it for free, except we do mix paints in 5-gallon containers, and we have white, tan, and gray, and we sell those 5-gallon containers for $25. But all of the other material is free. We have regular customers who come in, teachers. I do give paint away to the police department or sheriff for covering up graffiti, and some nonprofits I give the paint away to as far as the 5-gallon containers. But the other stuff, 1 gallon and all, free for anyone who comes in. And last year, the swap and shop saved the county over $98,000 by us not having to dispose of that material.
That's wonderful. I appreciate that. Good information as well, and I hope that the community takes advantage of the opportunity there on Stillwell to get some free stuff that might help them out in their homes.
That's right.
And also get rid of things they don't need. Anyway, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no other discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ransall?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item N, public hearing to consider a petition requesting creation of a road improvement benefit district in Redmond Estates Edition and consideration of a resolution determining the advisability of and authorizing the creation of the district.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Joe Norton with Gilmore & Bell, the county's bond counsel. The county has received a petition signed by residents of a portion of Redmond Estates requesting the construction of a street and drainage improvements of an asphalt suburban residential street in accordance with plans and specs approved by County Public Works and the creation of a benefit district to assess the cost thereof. On the map before you is a picture generally locating Redmond Estates. It is south of 31st Street, north of MacArthur Road, between 135th Street and 119th Street west. This map depicts the proposed boundaries of the district that are outlined in green, and the proposed road improvement districts that are located or identified in black. This map of the benefit district shows owners of 23 of the 32 properties executed the petition requesting the county create the district and authorize the improvements. This map shows in white the properties that executed the petition, and in red those property owners did not sign the petition. Public Works has prepared an estimate of cost for this project, which is approximately $679,000, which when divided equally among the 32 parcels would be about $21,213 per parcel, 100% of the cost to be assessed, no portion to be paid by the county at large. Assuming a 4% interest rate, property owners that desire to have this project assessment spread over 15 years at 4% would be approximately $1,908 per year. On April 13th, the county received this petition and set this date for public hearing for anyone who wanted to address the commission. That notice was mailed to all property owners and published as pursuant to your request. Jim Weber and Lynn Packer of Public Works are here. They're familiar with the actual project, and we're all available to answer questions either now or at the conclusion of public comment.
All right. Well, thank you for the comments. Anything else from you right at the moment?
No, I'll put this map back up here in case one of the commenters wants to show where he or she lives.
All right, well, it's our responsibility at this time we need to go ahead and conduct the hearing, so I'd like to go ahead and open the public hearing for this agenda item. I do have 4 people who signed up to speak earlier. It's my assumption they would want to speak at this time. I hope they're still here. If there's anybody else that hasn't signed up to speak, I certainly would also give you a chance to speak as well. But so I'd like to go ahead and open the hearing now, and we'll take some public comments. Is Craig Brown here in the audience? Sir, would you like to come up to the microphone, and we'll give you up to 5 minutes to speak to the commission?
Good morning, Commissioners. This is a want, not a need, and is not wanted by everyone in the area. If you look at the majority vote, yes, majority vote passed. But if you look at the total 32 units, the 11 that did not vote is 1/3 of that. It is my understanding that special assessments are charges levied against property owners to fund a public project which creates a benefit in those properties lying within a special geographical area. While I understand this premise, I have wondered how that benefit is measured. Is it based on the benefit to the property value, or does it take into consideration the financial limitations that some property owners may have? Levied assessments require that the property owner benefit by a measurable increase in the property's market value. The amount of tax is limited by that measurable increase in value. In order for a special assessment to be valid, the assessment may not exceed the special benefit being levied. The benefit is measured by the difference between what a willing buyer is willing to pay versus what a willing seller may pay for the property improvements. If the assessment is set higher than the special benefit, it could be determined that this is excessive in the amount of $21,213, which we just heard, plus any interest added depending upon the property's owner or ability to pay over time. 10 years ago, a similar special assessment to the property owner's building at that time was $9,000, which would be a little bit more reasonable benefit value to our property. I'm contending that these assessments exceed the special benefits received from the project. There are numerous negative impacts of the project, including increased noise, trash, traffic, decreased safety, privacy, accessibility, and potential liability to others trying to visit the property owners. I'm off on Tuesdays with my daughter, who's 5 years old. We are typically outside a lot during that period of time. I see flatbed semis with trusses coming in. I see concrete trucks, dirt haulers, all kinds of traffic coming in and out of the residence. This is also going to deter them from being able to get their projects done on time. Now, I've heard that this board had made mention recently that it didn't wish to front personal projects like this. If that is the case, I would like to see that upheld here. I personally contacted a few real estate agents and a previous county appraiser who is now a real estate agent that I know, and mentioned the situation to him. He said it would be extremely tough to put a value on a home just because of a paved road. He was familiar with a particular instance where a road was paved, much like we're talking about here, and the increase was minimal. For an example, saying to a $150,000 home, maybe an increase of $1,000 to $1,500. I know we're talking about homes of considerable higher values here than the one mentioned above, but he couldn't say exactly how much it could increase a property depending upon its current value. I feel a majority vote should not force a financial obligation on a person or family that could put them in hardship. Plus, keep in mind, 1/3 of the homeowners voted no. The reason you're getting opposition to this proposal is the cost, the timing for some who haven't built or are still building, and the detriment to our current lifestyle depending upon each family's current responsibilities or situations. Some of us may be taking care of elderly parents, have a child with special needs, kids in college, or still raising a family where costs rise as the kids get older. Such activities further help them with interaction with others in a competitive environment, increased tuition fees. They may need a vehicle to go to and from work, and of course the extra cost of putting them on our insurance policy. We've all had these responsibilities or will incur them at some point in time in our life. Personally, I have 4 children, 2 of which are teenagers, and my spouse is currently taking advanced education. These are all costs that I have and will increase as time goes on. Put yourself in my shoes and consider how you would feel if someone made you financially obligated for something you didn't feel was worth the cost versus spending the money on your own family to benefit them. And for those who have to finance this obligation, that cost is even more. Please take time to take a look at the things I've mentioned, knowing that every family situation and obligations are different, and don't put them into additional hardship for something that we already have that functions well. Thank you for hearing me.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll allow commissioners to ask questions, I guess, at the end of this. Is there anybody? So if anybody wants to have a further discussion with Mr. Brown, that'd be fine. But I'd like to call up Tammy Sheridan if she's here. All right, Tammy, thank you for being here today, and you have about 5 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Tammy Sheridan, and I have helped the Blacktop petition, or facilitate the Blacktop petition for Redmond Estates. I'd like to take a brief moment to give you a little history on the petition and why we think it is imperative that we move forward with paving our streets. First, a little history. My husband and I first began looking at Redmond Estates about 8 years ago. At that time, there was only one phase completed. The houses are situated on 1-acre lots in a plotted subdivision. Phase 1 was fully blacktopped and had 2 entrances with a decorative brick wall along the eastern edge. When we discussed options at that time, Phase 2 was not ready to be opened, but was already plotted. We asked about the roads and were told the plan was to have like kind in the next phase. For many reasons, it took Phase 2 longer to open than expected, but fast forward 4 years to the beginning of Phase 2. When we decided to build, a gravel cul-de-sac had been made so that our neighbors could get to the property they had purchased several years earlier. This opened 2 more lots, one of which we purchased. Before purchasing our lot, we again discussed blacktop. We were told that once half of the lots were purchased, we could petition for blacktop. Obviously, that process has been a little more detailed than originally laid out, but the intention has always been to have blacktop in the next phase once houses were built, and that matched Phase 1. When we built our home, electricity had not been laid in any of Phase 2 or Phase 3. Instead of just laying electricity to the 2 lots, the developers decided to cut the roads for Phase 2 and open the next phase. Several months later, Phase 3 roads were added as well. Once again, we were told that the intention was to have the roads blacktop once enough lots were sold and houses were built, so we waited. Approximately a year and a half ago, we started the process as we had 7 of 14 houses built in Phase 2. By the time we met in April 2015, several lots in Phase 3 had also been purchased. At that meeting, it was decided to include Phase 2 and 3 as one petition. In August 2015, we had 13 yes votes, 6 no votes, 3 no responses, and 9 lots owned by the developer. I personally spoke with the developers several times. They did not want to be responsible for the vote on 9 lots. They knew several were getting ready to sell, and they wanted the homeowners to make that decision as they would be responsible for the specials. We waited a little more. By January 2016, all 32 lots have been sold. We began the inquiry process again with all 32 lot and homeowners. Current owners were contacted through email. I personally mailed letters to all new lot owners as well. All 32 homeowners were notified of the meeting and petition inquiry. We held a neighborhood meeting on February 22nd. Prior to the meeting, I advised Mr. Packer from Sedgwick County Planning that we had more than 50% and felt we should move the petition from an inquiry petition to the official petition for blacktop. The official petition for blacktop was presented at the meeting. This included the petition process, estimated costs, and estimated timelines. There was also a question and answer period. Owners were also able to contact Mr. Packer directly for question and answers. It took about 1 week to connect with all 32 homeowners. We received a response from all but 1 owner. When the petition was completed, we had 23 yes votes and 9 no votes, which left us a little over 70% in favor of the petition. This brings us to today's meeting. I am here as a yes vote, and I'm also representing several families that were not able to join us today due to work schedule conflicts. We have 3 main reasons that we feel strongly about the petition. Expectation. Based on the conversations that we had before we purchased personally and during our build, we expected to have blacktopped areas. It is a reasonable belief that if you drive into a neighborhood on blacktop, the blacktop would be extended to the new phase. Knowing that we would eventually have pavement was part of the determining factor in purchasing our lot. Quality of life. We have lived in our house for 3.5 years. We moved to Redmond because it has a country feel, but not actually in the country. We are 1.5 miles from the city limits. Some say that we moved to the country so it's not an issue to have gravel. I disagree. I like some aspects, but I do not like the gravel, how it has impacted the quality of our life. I have been told that I should not be bothered because I have farm fields around me. I do, but I don't have dust from the farm fields. I have dust from the gravel when the cars hit the blacktop to the gravel every single day. I can close my windows when the farmer comes by once a year, but I can't close my windows every single day when the dust hits from the cars. It covers the inside surfaces of my house. It irritates my allergies. If it is dry, the dust flies every time a car goes by. If it is wet, we track mud into the garage. I love having my windows open so I can hear the birds and feel the breeze. The gravel does not allow this. I didn't move into a $300,000 plus house so that I could be a prisoner inside. I am tired of fighting these elements. Property values. Although we will not be able to increase our property value by $20,000, the lack of blacktop can decrease our property value. If we were to sell our house, we would miss out on buyers that would not even look at houses on a gravel road. Most of the houses in our development are of a higher end house. Most buyers looking in that price range would not expect to be on a gravel road. Because of this, we may have to have a lower asking price or property tax. I have 2 sentences. Can I?
Go ahead and just finish up.
Okay. So realize the cost is great to have the blacktop put in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, as the gravel and road ages, the cost will not be reduced, but will more likely increase. We like to have this done while the structure on the road bed is good. We realize it will take some sacrifice on our part. However, we feel the long-term benefits outweigh the cost. This was put to a neighborhood vote, and 70% of the owners agree that the benefits outweigh the cost. My hope is that you will vote yes and move forward with the petition for blacktop in Redmond Estates. Thank you for your time.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Sheridan. I'd like to call up Doug Sheridan, if he's here. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sheridan, for being here, and I'll give you 5 minutes as well.
Good morning. I'm Doug Sheridan, property owner in Redmond Estates. We were the second house to build within Phase 2, so when they opened the development. I would like to point out on the map, the red circle, the red highlighted area is the area of concern, and it's all gravel road right now. The area to the right of that is the old Phase 1, and that is completely paved right there, all those roads in there. So, and then to the far right is 119th Street, so that's paved road also. So, I mean, everything's coming in paved until you get to these Phase 2 and Phase 3 developments. So, there's been several comments about the value of paved roads versus the appraised value on homes. I agree that one is not likely to see an appreciable bump in value due to the paved roads. There is a marketability for a house that is for sale for potential buyers and the intrinsic value of that sale. There is a marketing advantage to having a paved roadway. There are people who would not consider a house on a dirt or gravel road, and this reduces the potential buyer market. This in turn raises the possibility of longer times in the market and reduced selling prices. Given the price point of houses in this neighborhood, when you try to sell and the time comes to reduce the price because you're not getting offers, that reduction will not likely be $1,000 or $2,000, but may be $10,000 to $20,000 depending on how long it's on the market and you need to sell. Right there is your road cost. Will this be true for everyone? No, but given the number of houses in the neighborhood, it is likely there's a significant number of people in the next 10 to 20 years that may be affected by this. I would not normally consider a house on a dirt and gravel road, and we only considered this with the anticipation the roads would be paved in the same manner as in Phase 1. I moved here 17 years ago. I took a job with Cessna. I came from Ohio. You have to look long and hard to find roads out in the middle of nowhere that are actually gravel. Most roads tend to be paved, even in the townships and stuff. Unlike here, where even in the middle of the city, you find gravel roads. So when we first moved here, unless it was absolutely necessary, I avoided all gravel roads, even at the time before the Maze Road flyover. We used to live in that development there, the south of Kellogg and west of Mays. And, you know, I could have taken the Mays Road traffic light, gone south, and then turned right onto Carr Road, which had a small gravel stretch. That might have been easier versus going up to Lark and making a left turn across traffic on Kellogg where there was no traffic light. Obviously, the flyover now eliminates that problem, but you know, I avoided the dirt roads at all cost. So I mentioned also it would not be logical that I mentioned the road conditions and the paved road in Phase 1. It's not logical to come into this neighborhood to believe that Phase 2 and Phase 3 would not be paved. Some other cost considerations. The dollar amount provided by the county is the worst case maximum. This includes having to refurbish the road bed, the high asphalt costs, having to modify all culverts, having to perform a full driveway, roadway reconstruction. Most likely, given the condition of the existing gravel road, this will not be required. Second, the cost on vehicles. There's increased wear on vehicles due to the washboarding on the roads, the extra dirt, the rock abrasions, and the wear and damage on your vehicle. Cost on the house. Tracking that dirt, dust, and gravel into the house increases wear and damage potential to wood, tile, and carpet. Dust in the furniture and then blowing everywhere. And then finally allergies, as my wife mentioned earlier. We are surrounded by farm fields. There is dirt and dust generated from these fields, but these are only plowed a couple times a year. During the summer there are crops, and that maintains the dirt and keeps the dirt and dust down. So very windy days do not pick up much dirt. This significantly limits the number of days that dirt and dust will be blowing into the neighborhood. That's all I need to say. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much, Mr. Sheridan. I'd like to see is David Nance here. All right, please come up to.
I believe Mr. Sheridan have covered about all the bases I was thinking about talking about too.
All right, so you
I believe so. I believe what they can say is that the quality of housing.
we need to hear you on the microphone because it's being recorded, sir.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I feel naked. I don't have any notes.
It's okay.
But I do believe the quality of houses you are building out there at Redmond Estates. I've talked to many people, and they said they would love to build out there, but only with asphalt roads. I think it would add value to it. The quality and expensive houses we build out there, the people that could afford those or would like to afford those, I guarantee will have nicer cars. You cannot have a clean car out there. There's no possible way. It's just the small things you think about. Oh yeah, I like dirt roads I built. Mr. Coleman and Kelly both told us there would be real good possibilities that those roads would be paved. And that was what my expectations were, that, okay, I'll live there for a year and a half, and hopefully get those expectations. As they said before, $681,000, that is the worst case scenario. The interest on that, I'd rather spend towards my family. My other answer to that is, how about the interest you're paying on your house? 10 times, 20 times more what the interest is going to be on a paved road. Your children play on a smooth paved road, ride your bicycles, whatever they do out there, they can. Skateboards. Sand and rock, gravel is slippery. Bicycles, very easy to slip out and hurt yourself. It's just something, I just look at the simple things, and I see that it's feasible to have paved roads, and that's what I was hoping for. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nance. Is there anybody else here that would like to speak to the commission before we close the public comment part of this hearing? All right, seeing none. And I probably should have had you state the addresses for the record. We do have them written down on our public comment sign-up sheet, so we do have the addresses for the record. But seeing no other comments, I'd like to go ahead and close the hearing for Redmond Estates and bring it back to the board. Comments, Commissioner Ransaw?
Yeah, first I have some questions for Joe, just to kind of clarify. I look at this petition, and there are a lot more than 11 people who haven't signed. Can you?
Sure. The statute provides that for a signature for a property to be valid, that all the owners of that property need to sign. So where there are multiple owners of a parcel, a husband and wife, sometimes other family members, all of them have to sign for that property to be included. So I think the petition that was prepared by Public Works shows all of the record owners of property. So there may be multiple owners of a parcel that did not sign. So
let me interject on on page 2 of our backup material. Lists the names of the owners, but that repeats itself on page. Okay. Page 54 of the backup material repeats on page 61.
Also, Mr. Chair, I might add, Mr. Weber reminded me there were 2 different petitions circulated and combined together, so some will show that.
I see at least one signature on the second petition and the bulk of them on the first petition, but it's the same list of names.
Correct.
I counted them up. I think I see 9 names on the first petition, or 9 areas that are not signed on the first petition. That's what I found. Anyway. Maybe I'm wrong in counting that, but that's what I see right now. Commissioner Rans, any further comments or questions on that or anything else?
Yeah, then I have some questions for Public Works. Can you tell me what the length of these roads are all together, and what exactly, how is this being paved?
I'm going to defer to Lynn. He did put the project together, has worked with these folks, and he can answer those questions better than I can.
Good morning. As far the length is approximately a little over half a mile. The matter in which it's going to be constructed is meeting county standards. Our intention is to have a good sound road base. If we find what was previously built out there, which did meet our expectations at the time that road was built, is a solid base, we'll leave that and add 7 inches of hot mix asphalt. If we find issues with the sub base, we'll end up having to remove the gravel that's there now and replace it with what we commonly just refer to as a rock intensar, which is a gravel base with a mat below that spreads lateral forces and provides a good strong base for that road, along with 7 inches, the typical 7 inches of asphalt. The estimate we prepared also includes obviously shoulders matching that, which was done in the first phase of Redmond Estates. And if we have any culverts, ditches that aren't draining, such like that, we address those issues as well when we go through there and make the improvements.
Well, so my question is, so this is about half a mile, and we're doing and it's costing $678,000. Well, I know in other areas we're doing a mile for that cost. So it seemed to me, is this twice the cost of what we are doing in some other areas? And so what's the explanation there?
Probably the most basic explanation, and I'll defer to the county director or county engineer. When we have a situation where homeowners are going to be paying for roads for the next 15 years, we are going to utilize tried and true methods in construction. Those methods right now that we're utilizing in some locations, specialized locations, to get a lower cost are experimental and have not been fully vetted by Public Works. We think we're on the cusp of making some great strides in some alternative construction methods that will help us reduce costs in the future, but we don't know the longevity of those roads and those bases. And we would definitely hate for someone to be paying for these roads for the next potentially 15 years and have to find out that after 5, 6, 7 years the base blows up on them or they start getting fatigue cracking.
Well, that's true for the taxpayer too, though.
There is, and that's why those roads are used.
Have more cost-effective alternatives been offered?
We have discussed them, but they were ruled out as an option to pursue.
Who ruled them out?
That would be the county engineer.
Oh. So it hasn't been offered to the public?
No. In this particular situation, some of the residents had heard about other options, when they called around to find out what it would cost to do a road from other contractors, and they inquired about them. We discussed it and ruled that out as a legitimate option.
Well, I don't think the government should rule that option out. I think we should give that to the landowners myself. $21,000 is a lot of money. I would be sympathetic if I was out there to alternatives. That's a lot of money. So I'm disappointed that we didn't offer those alternatives and let the people decide for themselves. That's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Peterjohn?
Yes. Let me ask you, did you say 7 inches of asphalt?
That's correct.
And is this hot mix, cold mix, or something else?
It is hot mix asphalt.
Hot mix asphalt. Because was interested in terms of the cost. It's a little hard from looking at this and having driven out there, and my eyeball isn't as calibrated as it used to be. What's the average size of the lots out there? Is that something that's, I didn't see that in the backup material. Maybe I missed it.
I believe those are 1 acre lots. They're all very similar in size, plus or minus an acre.
Roughly an acre in size, okay. Okay, because...
Can I mention one thing? Phase 1.
Please come to the microphone, and again, please state your name and address for the record.
Caleb Everett, and I'm a homeowner out there.
I need your address, please.
12401 West 35th Street South. Okay. Phase 1, when they had their blacktop, I think it's 7 years ago, they were half the cost of what they're wanting us to pay. But I just wanted to bring that up. They were about 10, I believe 10,000 a lot, and they want 21,000 from us. And I believe oil prices were lower back then than they are today. Or no, they're lower now than they were back then.
All right.
I just want to make a point.
All right, well, thank you very much. And I can invite Lynn Packer if you'd like to respond to that. If you'd like to, it's up to you.
We did look at phase 1 assessments when this came through. I was with the department when that was instigated by the developer in phase 1 and saw the end of that. But per ton asphalt prices on that project came in, if I remember correctly, it was very close to about $21 a ton. Currently, as of this year, we're paying around $65 a ton. At the time that the petition went around, we originally talked about this in 2014. This was, 2015. It was about $85 a ton. It does fluctuate, but I can't speak to oil prices back at that time. That was 15 years ago. But I can say that I did look up the estimates for the construction actual bids, and that was the price for asphalt at the time.
Just can you verify the road type of construction that's in phase 1? Is that the same as what we're talking about here for this phase?
It's identical.
Okay. Commissioner Peter John, any other
No,
questions or comments?
I'll ask my questions. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, I don't see any other comments at the time. What's the will of the board? All right, Commissioner Peter John.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm familiar with this area and the efforts to develop down in the southwest part of the county, and an event like this is always a challenge because you've got to try and internalize community costs as we're structured under state law, and other states handle these types of situations differently than Kansas does. While I have some concerns in terms of the costs here, and hopefully we can come up with a project that would meet the needs of the community and tries to do so at a reasonable price as possible. So I'm going to recommend that we adopt the resolution, but I understand the challenges, and I would state to Public Works the costs here are significant, but there's very nice homes in this development. I'm glad to see it continue to grow and flourish, but this is a significant burden that would be added to the folks who live in that area, and that's one of the reasons why I'd like to try and see where we could in the future try and internalize, and obviously if the cost can be reduced and we can get a good quality product, try and do so. That's my proposal at this point.
Thank you, Commissioner. Let me say further, so we have a motion. Let me say further that looking at the petition again, I recounted it a couple times here. There's 32 property owners, if I counted correctly, and 9 of those did not sign. So doing the quick math, that's 72% in favor. I did hear from those that spoke during the public comment part of this, and I understand the point that it would be nice if 100% of the property owners would agree to this. I don't know that's a reasonable expectation. I'm not sure that you can ever get to 100%. The 9 that did not sign, I don't know how to interpret that, if that means they're neutral or they're opposed. It could be either. Obviously, those that did sign the petition are in favor of this, but those that did not sign, it's not clear to me by looking at the petition what their position actually is. I do understand from Craig Brown his position because he came and spoke to us today. I don't have any other information to go from, but the testimony of Ms. Sheridan was very, very compelling to me. I believe that the expectation was clearly communicated to them when they purchased the property. I would assume that most property owners out there probably were told similar things, and it seems like a reasonable expectation. And the quality of life is a pretty big deal. And to the extent that 72% of the people want this, to me, the democratic position ought to be we should let the community choose for themselves what they want to do, and I think they've spoken to us through the petition. So I would like to second the motion. Any other comments from other commissioners? All right, seeing none. We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ransall?
No.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. All right, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Item O, report of the Board of Bids and Contracts regular meeting on May 5th, 2016.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Joe Thomas, Purchasing Director. The meeting of the Board of Bids and Contracts of May 5th results in 8 items for your consideration this morning. Item number 1 is the dental supplies for the Health Department. This recommendation is to accept the overall low bid from Dental Health Products Incorporated and establish contract pricing for 1 year with 2 one-year options to renew. Item number 2 is outdoor warning siren equipment for emergency management. Recommendation is to accept the quote from Acoustic Technology Incorporated and execute contract pricing for 3 years with 2 one-year options to renew. Item number 3 is the HP desktop computers, laptops, and tablets for the Metropolitan Area Building and Construction Department. This recommendation is to accept the low responsive bid from CDWG in the amount of $114,888.04. Item number 4 is the painted pavement marking for Public Works. The recommendation is to accept the low bid from Traffic Control Services in the amount of $420,686.50. Item number 5 is building for the Law Enforcement Training Center for Facilities Department. This recommendation is to accept the proposal from MWCB LLC and enter negotiations with the intent to execute a contract to purchase a newly constructed building at the Wichita State University Innovation Campus for a total cost of $9,542,379. Item number 6 is HVAC control system for Facilities Department. This recommendation is to accept the base bid with alternate number 2 from 5 Star Mechanical Incorporated in the amount of $135,151 and to establish unit pricing for alternate number 1, which involves replacement of dampers and actuators at a unit price of $890 each. Item number 7 is pharmacy services for the Corrections Department. This recommendation is to execute an agreement with Dan Duran Pharmacy for a not to exceed amount of $100,000. And item number 8, dairy products for Corrections Department. This recommendation is to accept the low bid from Dean Foods, doing business as Southern Foods Group LLC, and to establish contract pricing for 2 years with 3 one-year options to renew. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, and I recommend approval of these items.
All right, thank you for the information. Commissioners, what's the will of the board? Commissioner Peterjohn.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the recommendations of the board as a bids and contract except for item 5.
Second.
And item 5, I think it's our intent to talk about that one independently. So we're not taking a position on item 5 right now, but the rest of the items together, except for item 5, where your motion is to accept everything else.
Yes, and that's the Law Enforcement Training Center.
Very, very good. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion? All right, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peter-John?
Aye.
Commissioner Ransall?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. All right. Well, thank you for that motion. We're on item number 5, Law Enforcement Training Center. Expect we'll have some good discussion on this. Commissioners, I'd like to just open this up to you and allow you to ask questions or make comments as we get started here. Commissioner Ransall.
Yeah, Joe, I have a couple questions. The information we have here said there was 2 assessments. The first one, was there any objective data that was created? A rating scheme? We have 4 of them, and
yes, sir. Usually when and I was not part of this particular evaluation committee, but generally there is a matrix we evaluate the specifications as outlined in the RFP. Whoever was part of that committee that would like to be more specific.
Maybe Steve could talk to this. I thought.
Steve Clausen, Facilities, Fleet, and Parks Director. The first committee did create a list of criteria that we wanted to evaluate the proposals on. There was not a formal calculation or vote taking on it. Each committee member assessed this independently on their own and vocalized their position on it. It was clear that Law Enforcement Training Center at that time, for the first group, that was heavily weighted on the law enforcement training or the law enforcement. A lot of representatives from law enforcement were in that first group, and it was very clear that Law Enforcement Training Center at Innovation Campus was the preferred option.
Well, what were the results of the objective criteria? Weren't there numbers assessed given to all 4?
Not formally.
Okay, but what was the assessment that came out of those 4?
As I said, each member looked at it independently.
I understand, but what was the assessment that was given on? Each of them were given a number, right? What?
It was not compiled that way, Commissioner.
What do you mean it wasn't compiled that way?
There was no number recorded.
There was no number there were numerical assessments made on all 4 buildings.
Are you asking me whether there? I don't. So what is the question?
Yes, I mean that's a statement of fact, is it not?
That numerical values were provided
that
on
criteria, then all the numbers were added up.
But as you know, when we spoke in executive session on this topic, it was unclear as what that criteria would even be, and so we factored in the input that we received through those executive sessions on those criteria.
Hey, Commissioner, if I could, Mike Scholes, County Manager. If you recall, there's 2 evaluation teams. The first one met. There were, as Steve was indicating, 4 City of Wichita Police Department representatives and 4 sheriff deputies represented. and they did develop a table with scoring criteria, et cetera. I threw out those recommendations in order to give the commissioners a chance to weigh in on the criteria itself. I felt it was predetermined, and I wanted the commissioners who hadn't had a voice yet in determining the criteria to get a voice in the criteria before that was tabulated. And so the commissioners did, and when we met with all the commissioners, and then there was another evaluation team after that met to discuss the different proposals. And so the second evaluation team met to discuss those proposals and chose the Innovation Campus after that.
Was there any objective criteria used in there that can be revealed?
I was not in that evaluation team.
And there was, again, no numerical assessment, nothing recorded.
Oh, okay, there was numerical assessment in the first one. Why aren't we revealing that? What is wrong with revealing that?
It was revealed to you.
Yes.
And based off of us changing that criteria, it would make whatever was done in that session moot because the criteria changed from what they rated it at.
Well, I think it's important to publicly disclose the numerical evaluation that was done initially. And then, I don't know why the criteria was changed. We have, well, this is the deal. We have 4 options here. And the preferred option is $9.5 million. There's a cheaper option, for example, for $6.2 million that I thought initially was evaluated on par with, I thought 3 of them were tied. So the question is, why, how can, we talk to the taxpayers, what's the exact objective criteria for why we're paying $3.3 million more if we go that route? Keep in mind this original thing started at a $30 million project, and now we're down to where we are today, and I think we need to get quality product at a good price. I have concerns about the process. I'll review a little bit. Last year, after the city of Wichita got a new mayor, I contacted him and got together, and the very first meeting we had, the very first item we talked about was this item. My suggestion was that we put out an RFP for this so that we can get all bids, open process, people can bid, get the best product for our community. A month later, he came back and said, okay, let's do it. So we did this. We did an RFP on behalf of the city of Wichita and Sedgwick County. I thought this was a process that both of us were involved in, and a process that is supposed to provide open government and have some integrity to the system. It's problematic, I think, when elected officials make public statements about one particular choice prior to the procedure following course. I think it's premature, inappropriate, and it brings significant harm to the integrity of the process. I want to be able to tell the taxpayers and the other bidders and whatever thing, not just in this RFP process, but any RFP process, that when you put a bid in, this outcome is not predetermined. And when public officials make statements that predetermine the outcome, that is problematic. That sort of thing is what makes people lose confidence in the credibility of government, which we have plenty of nowadays. There's a couple on this list that I think would be excellent choices. I'm not opposed to what's been recommended here. but I'm not opposed to some others that are more cost-effective. One of my biggest concerns is that we can look at the taxpayers in the eye and say this was a system whose integrity was not violated. That's important far beyond just this particular decision. So that's why I'm trying to get information out and try to see how we got to this particular position and wrap my mind around what's going on. I mean, not taking the lowest bid rarely happens. It has happened in the past. The most famous example is the airport, and that caused a lot of brouhaha about that. But when there is no objective criteria, that's also problematic, because that's problematic. So I guess we're not going to disclose all the details, and but I just have some concerns about how we move forward here. Certainly this is an important situation, but that we need to resolve, and I think we will at some point. But those are my concerns about. Those are some of my concerns that I have here, and I'm not quite sure how to resolve that and get to where we need to be, while at the same time ensuring that the public knows that there's integrity in the system. So that's all I have for now, Mr. Chairman.
Well, thank you for your comments. Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am in agreement with much of what Commissioner Ranzo says. The first pass through, there was in the numerical analysis of rating, there was a three-way tie, and I think that's one of the reasons we thought we needed to take another go at this, because there wasn't a clear leader in the options we had at that time, and so I think probably that was a reasonable thing to do if there wasn't clear indication of what was the best option when we're spending this much money. Of the options that are presented to us, it's clear that there is one option that is substantially less expensive, less of an investment for the citizens to make. But my thinking on this is that we definitely need to move forward with the project. We have to get this law enforcement training center established. We have to do it in partnership with our counterparts in the city of Wichita, and we have to do something that is satisfactory to both the sheriff's office and the city police. Because of the way that this has evolved, it seems to me like the law enforcement training center at the Innovation Campus is what seems to be the preference of most people. But I would agree that you're going to have a hard time. Well, Joe, maybe you can tell me why the $9.5 million proposal is better than the $6.2 million. What was that process?
Generally in a proposal, sir, cost is an important factor. And again, since I wasn't part of either one of the evaluation committees, that is taken into consideration, but a proposal allows us to look at other factors that may be outside the cost. Again, going back to whether it's qualitative, quantitative. But to tell you the reason, the difference, why it was accepted, strictly, of course, looking at this tells you it's not based on strictly cost. So a proposal allows us that latitude of not having to have cost as the determining factor. It is an important factor, but not necessarily the determining factor. I hope.
No, that's
okay.
Helpful, and I know that we're in a situation here where we need to get this facility going, and we need to work in conjunction with our partners. And that's an overriding consideration for me as I am about to make a vote on this. But it is clear, as Commissioner Ranzo said, that there's a substantially less expensive option.
Yeah.
And I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if I recognize some of the folks who have bid on this. I don't know if they want an opportunity to speak or how you want to handle it.
I will. Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner. I would certainly want to hear from the audience as well on this item. We typically do that on any new business, and so I would like to do that here at some point. Before I do that,
Chairman, can I make one?
yes, sir.
Kind of getting back real quick to Commissioner Anzau's remarks. Going back to the evaluation teams, there were 2 evaluation teams because I felt the first evaluation team was predetermined. I think a lot of the participants of that board or of that team came in with a predisposed, pre-selected outcome. The reason I insisted on a second evaluation team was to have a clean process. So that second team actually came back together and met. Now, I don't know if they did or didn't do a table because I didn't influence or talk to or be a part of that in any way, shape, or form. But the reason I held that second team was to do a second look to make the process as clean as possible. Because I felt like that first team was predisposed to choose a particular course of action. So I threw those results out. I felt that table was influenced by that pre-selection. To me, getting you into the process and establishing criteria, which changed, if you remember, from what that team chose. So it did change what they were looking at based off of your input, in which allowed for that second team to meet and do it through your filter as well.
Let me just respond to that comment real quickly. In the paragraph that's on our backup material, it says that there's a number of folks that were involved in the second review, and I recognize most of these have connections directly to the county, not to the city. Tom Stoltz is half and half, but it says this committee, the second committee, also reviewed the process, deliberation, outcome of the initial review committee and concluded it to be an adequate and appropriate process and recommendation. So despite any concerns we may have had in the first review process, the second committee basically validated what was presented at the first committee. And my recollection to that was there was a 3-way tie. But in addition to that, there was some discussion. Sheriff was there and gave some commentary in addition to the objective numerical weighting. And his comments were that there was two bids he felt were very, very capable of providing all of the law enforcement training needs for the county, and that either one of those would have been a great selection. It so happens one of those was the low bid, but further comments were he talked about some of the other issues about Innovation Campus, the location, the fact that we have a high crime area of the city. It would be nice to have a larger police presence. Having connection to criminal justice students at WSU was another consideration, and because of those items, he felt that Innovation Campus afforded some unique opportunities that the other location did not afford. So, considering those things, he felt like even out of the 2 that he was recommending the 1 personally. But going back to the objective weightings, again, it was a 3-way tie, and the discussion that day talked about that there was 2 that would be very, very adequate for solving this community need. So anyway, again, I'm just trying to reflect on what I remember, and if I'm wrong about that, please someone correct me. But let's go ahead and go on. Commissioner Peter John.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate everyone who's preceded me in comments, and I agree with a large part of what they pointed out. I think it's important for the folks who have followed this, how long a history we are talking about for this project. I have tried to dig into it. Of course, I have an interest in history, but literally this does go back. I haven't run into anybody. I've gotten different data on how long this goes back from different people, but everybody agrees that it goes back at least into the last century. And so this is something that is not new by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it's important. What we have here is a significantly lower cost to both city and county taxpayers than the original proposals that we had in place that were looking at costs between $30 and $35 million. I would also add that we have a challenge here, and I think it's a challenge that the county and I think also our friends across the street with the city have met. We've had, I think, an excellent example of city-county cooperation with the MABCD It's taken a long time to do, but not nearly as long as we're talking about here in this case, but to have a continued city and county joint training facility. And this is unique. They teach up at the state facility that trains law enforcement folks for the other 104 counties and for the folks who are not part of either the Sedgwick County Sheriff or the Wichita Police Department. That state training that occurs up near a state facility near Yoder, we largely do not utilize except for the road training portion of the training that county and city folks who are going to be sheriff deputies and police officers go through. So the factor that I look at here and have been a concern when people have said, hey, what would you support, Commissioner? My response has often been, at what price? I'm trying to look at the best value that we can get for the taxpayers that's going to enhance public safety in this community. And that's two joint important priorities for me. So that's the approach I'm looking at addressing this issue, and I very much appreciate the discussion we're having today because this process has proceeded. It's taken longer than I wanted, and there have been some twists and turns along the way that I have stretched this out, and it is a need, in my opinion, that needs to be addressed, and I'd been hoping it would have been addressed prior to today, but it hasn't. So I'm going to leave that there, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Well, thank you. I don't see any other lights on at the moment. This is an extremely important decision for this community, and I would love to have people from the audience that are here that are showing interest in this agenda item. I'd like to invite you to come up to the microphone and give any comments that you'd like. If you'd like to do that, please come up to the microphone and state your name and address. We'll give you. We'll see how many there are, but please raise your hands if you want to speak, so I know how many we're talking about here. Just a couple. Okay. I would like to give you up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is Steve Martins. I reside at 810 North Cypress in Wichita. My entity, I'm a part owner of the entity Commerce Center, which is the low proposal. And I thank Commissioner Ranzow for his comments. One of the things I wanted to talk about today was having faith in the process and a little bit of what goes on the other side when a substantial RFP is sent out and what the effort people put in believing in this process to go through. If you haven't, I invite you to visit Wichita State University's website. They're very excited about announcing the new building on their campus. It's a beautiful building. Quite frankly, it rivals any corporate headquarters I'm aware of in the city of Wichita. But they certainly are very excited about having that there. As Commissioner Ranzow pointed out, and Mr. Thomas alluded to, there was a proposal sent out to various individuals. I believe, based upon information that Mr. Thomas's office provided you all, there were 14 people, 14 groups that responded, and 4 of those actually went forward and created a proposal. This is our proposal that we created, and we went through step by step of the needs and the utilization of the space and the requirements that were set forth in the county proposal. I was fortunate enough to have Mr. Mark Hutton, who's here today of Hutton Construction, join our team and work with us in analyzing this and putting it together. And I can assure you, we took the task very seriously. We spent a lot of our time, a lot of our effort to try to bring a solution to you at what we hoped would be a cost-effective solution. And it is extremely difficult, and I got to admit to you guys, disappointing to listen to the conversation today. And I am familiar with this process, as many of you know, and I have worked on these teams, that there is no rating system or a predisposed, predetermined, I've heard those terms today used, process in what's made here. And, you know, if it's pencils, pickup trucks, computers, you look at a spec sheet, it's a pretty straightforward deal. You win or you don't. But it's very, I think this is a very complicated process. And you know, the beauty of this facility is very nice. I don't recall in, and I think if we went back and looked, it was not there in the original proposal, that it had to rival a corporate headquarters facility in Wichita, and the price be according to that. We have a location that is a good location, a well thought out plan, and I think this plan, based now upon what we see in the cost proposals, deserves additional consideration. And I certainly don't want to be one to slow the process down, believe me, but it's just very troubling to me on what I'm hearing for the first time on how this process has gone. And as a business member, the community and involved, that really, really disturbs me. We had zero communication with any of the committee other than just me calling, asking for updates. And again, I don't know the process. I don't know when Wichita State first had this on their website, but it's just very disappointing. But I thank you for the opportunity to speak. And Mr. Chairman, if there are questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
All right. Any questions from Mr. Martins? Seeing none right now, but we'll reserve the right to call you back up if you'll stay around. Any others that would like to come speak? All right. Please state your name and address.
Lonnie Wright, 1721 South Lulu, Wichita. I feel there is added value of locating an educational training facility with education. I think we'd end up with better educated and better trained officers, plus a great resource for recruitment. I think the best value for taxpayers would be to locate at WSU regardless of the politics involved. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your comments. Anybody else in the audience that would want to come speak to the commission on this agenda item? All right. Seeing none, bringing it back to the board. Lights are not on right now, so let me go ahead and make some comments and ask some questions as well. Just want to say the first committee that looked at this it consisted of, I think, 10 members. There was 5 from the city and 5 from the county. The commission had no awareness of this. In fact, we had nothing to do with this. I think Steve Clausen, if I understand correctly, your department took the lead and decided that it was important to have city's input at every step of the way. And of course, looking at these bids initially, you guys had 5 folks from the city, 5 folks from the county. Most of those, yes, there was a number of law enforcement officers, including the sheriff's department. I believe whoever's representing the city's police department were involved in that review. So again, we want to make very clear that as a partnership with Wichita, we have included them every step of the way. And someone said earlier that they felt it was predetermined that the Innovation Campus in the first committee review, perhaps that they predetermined or felt that was the most important, maybe before they actually looked at the data. But let me just point out again that what we got back was a 3-way numerical tie. And the comments that followed that were there was two of the bids they felt were totally met the requirements and needs of the county and in the city. So I really feel like that first committee actually did do a really good job in terms of it represented both sides, and they came back with as best they could an objective evaluation of the bids. And they did not come back and just simply say there's only one answer to this. They actually gave us a much more robust discussion about the options ahead of us, and it was not just Innovation Campus. So I appreciated that very much. I'll continue my comments in just a moment. Commissioner Ranzau?
Yeah, I just want to say that I appreciate the manager's efforts on the second committee, but I have to say that for a variety of reasons, I don't believe there's any chance that the second review committee was going to come to any other conclusion than the University Innovation Campus. I forgot what I was going to say, but that's it for now.
Well, if you think of it, we'll come back to you. Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, you had said, and I guess I'll ask Joe or Steve, but all along the way we had participation with folks from the city, either their staff or their electeds. Is that true?
All the way.
That's correct, particularly in the first review group. It was equally represented between the city and the county. The second group was exclusively county staff that did that, participated in that group.
So city electeds or staff was not in the second group?
That's correct. It was exclusively, well, Tom Stoltz, I guess, has a joint
dual role,
dual role, so his, that makes it non-exclusive, but close to.
And we followed that procedure because the city had already declared their preference? Is that the statement?
I think that's right, yes.
Okay. And Mr. Manager, have you had a conversation with the city manager as we approach decision time on this?
Yes, we've had several discussions.
Okay. That answers my question.
All right, Commissioner Ranzau?
What I was going to say was, I don't think there was any chance the second committee would come to a different conclusion other than the innovation campus. And to my recollection, I don't remember anything being discussed in executive committee that would change the fact that there are two acceptable solutions. So that's all. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. I want to say, number one, I've said from the very beginning that I think jointly training together with Wichita is certainly the vision we'd like to keep as our goal. I think that jointly training is the best, and it'd be nice to train in a facility that actually had the right resources and the right space available for that training to happen. So the best model for law enforcement training for this community is to jointly train Sedgwick County law enforcement along with the Wichita City law enforcement. I think them training together provides some synergy. They actually attend many emergencies together. They know how each other thinks and works. I think there's added safety because they understand each other's processes and procedures, and they know each other. I think there's a reason why jointly training law enforcement from the city and the county is very, very important. Of course, having an adequate space that has all the right resources and the right spaces available, I think is critically important as well. Between the two of those things, having the right space and having the right resources, we could train independently. To me, that's not as good. As long as we have an adequate space and has the right resources, we could, in fact, train independently, but I don't think that's the best model. The best model is to train together. And I think we ought to be committed to that, and I feel like I am committed to that. I don't know if our partners across the street feel exactly the same way I do on that or not, but it is difficult when you have two entities that are partnered together for them to somehow hone in on the same decision is a difficult process, and there's a risk that we would choose something different than what the city would choose, and then we've got to find a way to get back on the same page, as long as we're going to be committed to jointly training together. Again, I hope that that's the end result, but I don't know how. If we end up picking something different than what they've already said publicly, then I don't know how we do that, but we'll have to figure that out if that's what happens. I would like to point out that we have Commissioner Ranzau, when he was chairman, did have monthly meetings with the mayor just to talk about whatever happens to be of interest. And of course, the Law Enforcement Training Center has been one of the most important topics, I think, of this community for a very long time. And so that topic, I think, was discussed a lot at those meetings. I was able, as a commissioner, to attend some of those meetings. And that topic did come up a number of times while I was in the room, and I remember hearing the discussion. And let me back up just one more step here. During the RFP process, we also included the city in making sure the right elements were in the RFP that represented their needs as well. So it wasn't a unilateral RFP. It was something we partnered with Wichita from the very beginning. Again, it was suggested by Chairman Ranzau. The city thought this was a good idea, but they've been included even in the writing of the RFP. So they've been our partner from the very beginning. I'll suspend my comments for just a minute. Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't recall, and it's just to help me clear up my thinking, but has the City of Wichita Council voted on this officially? I mean, are we making assumptions here, or have they, I mean, I know the mayor came out clearly and had a press conference saying that this was their choice, but it's not. I'm not trying to make a big tipping point. I'm just trying to get my facts straight here.
I guess I'll respond to that, and that is, I have talked to some of the city council members about the process and how we got to where we are right now, and it seems to me like most of the city council members have not been included in some of the detailed discussions. In fact, I think they felt like they've not really been part of the conversation, unfortunately. We were invited to stand with the mayor when he announced publicly that they have chosen Innovation Campus, and we declined that. In fact, I urged the mayor not to do that because I think it was premature. We're not ready to make that decision. We need to let the bid board do their job. We needed to continue discussions and find out the details of what that would mean if that was in fact the direction we wanted to go. But it was premature for us to have that disclosed at that time, and so I asked the mayor, and unfortunately, that's not what happened. I am curious. I will state I've been following this very closely, and I think it's clearly obvious that they've never had an open meeting where this has been discussed and actually have gotten comments and support of the council members. And so when they announced publicly that this was their decision, I don't know if that represents just the single, the mayor's personal opinion, or if he represents the city council also. It's not clear to me. But I know that we can't do that. If I was to make that announcement, I would be criticized, I'm sure. I'm not a dictator, once again, but I can't disclose to the community what the decision of the county commission is until we publicly debate this and make a decision in an open meeting, which we're doing right now. And this is the process we need to follow. And as far as I know, that never has happened across the street. And so that is why we were not able to participate in the unilateral announcement that they've picked a particular direction to go. And with that with that in mind, I wanted to say that I appreciate that announcement, but I need to let that not influence me too much here. We need to let the process work. So we want to let the data speak for itself, and we need to have the freedom to really analyze these bids and pick what we think is best. And if we disagree with the city, ultimately we've got to find a way to get back on the same page. But back where I was saying a minute ago, we have met with the mayor a number of times. Since I've been chairman, we've continued to meet with him. We try to meet once a month, and we've actually added some meetings to that with the intent to actually talk about, just one commissioner talking to one elected person over there, the mayor, not saying I represent a decision of this board in any way. Just me personally wanted to understand his perspective and see if we can talk out some of the details. And so I've met with the mayor a number of times on LETC. Unfortunately, some of our meetings lately have been canceled. My father died a couple weeks ago. That interrupted one of our meetings. He's had a wedding in his family that interrupted one of the potential meetings we would have had. Life is complicated. Our schedules are very, very filled in, so it's hard to get together. And but we have had a number of meetings on Law Enforcement Training Center. I've included Manager Scholes. The mayor's included the manager of the city. I've actually asked our counselor to sit in on a couple of those meetings, and they've had theirs as well. We had a nice meeting with the vice mayor as well, and at least one or two of those meetings. So we've done what we can to talk this out as partners, trying to find out the best direction forward. I'd like to raise another issue that I have talked about pretty freely last couple of months, because it's become obvious to me, and that is the same reasons why jointly training in a state-of-the-art facility for law enforcement training is critically important. And we've done it this way for decades. And we've done a great job. Our law enforcement officers are the best, no doubt about it. And that's because we train together in a facility, but it's not the best facility. We need to step that up and make it a state-of-the-art facility. And that is true, and I think I'm committed to I want to see that solution in place at the end of the day. When we get all done with this decision today or whenever this happens, I think that's the goal. I would like to make sure we jointly train somewhere in a state-of-the-art facility. But it's obvious to me that public safety is a much bigger topic than just law enforcement. And it has come to my attention because I've attended the firefighter graduations for Sedgwick County. I've seen the videos. I've talked to the firefighters. I've talked to our leadership in our fire department, that we have a public safety disparity between Wichita and Sedgwick County. The training that they have is in a state-of-the-art facility, and it's wonderful. It's called the Wichita Regional Fire Training Center, RFTC for short. It's called RFTC. And I think Wichita chose to go that direction years ago when the Heartland Training Center idea dissolved. And the reason that dissolved, I think, was the cost. It was about $30 million, $15 million to each entity, and I think that was too much money for them to continue. And so both the city and the county, both made choices to go a different direction. The city, to their credit, they were able to get it on their agenda, and they initially approved $4.4 million, and eventually I think they spent $5.8 million to build the Regional Fire Training Center. The unfortunate thing is that they are the only entity that routinely gets to use that facility and does the majority of their training in that facility. It has been unfortunate for Wichita. Unfortunate for Sedgwick County firefighters that we've not had the chance to access that facility the way we would like to. And it's true, they've got a lot more firefighters than we do. We've got 9 fire stations, they've got 22. You add in the other fire stations around the county, there's around 40 fire stations countywide. Derby's got 2, and there's a few others. There's some volunteer fire departments. But altogether, there's about 40 fire stations in the community, and we have 9 of those. If you just do the math, the head count of Sedgwick County versus Wichita, we have about 25% of the firefighters providing fire safety to the unincorporated part of the county. Plus, we have automatic aid and mutual aid agreements with Wichita and other communities as well. So our firefighters go inside the city a lot. In fact, I'd say we provide more support inside the city limits than we do outside the city limits. But those firefighters are paid for by the fire district. And so it's unfortunate that their firefighters have it's great that their firefighters have a state-of-the-art facility, and they do extensive training with wonderful resources and a very adequate facility, provides the space and the things they need to be the best they can be. But it's unfortunate for Sedgwick County firefighters that we train in parks and parking lots. We're using innovative ways to train, and I appreciate that very much. We're talking about Innovation Campus at potentially for the Law Enforcement Training Center. Our firefighters have had to be very, very innovative to train, and I think we have the best firefighters also. But it's to their credit they've found a way to get that done despite the fact they don't have adequate facilities. And I've talked to Chief Leak and Chief Tagney and others in our fire department, and this has been a long desire and very little ability to actually reach any type of partnership or agreement with Wichita to allow that type of training to continue to happen. We've had more discussions about this of recent. I've raised this issue with the mayor and with the manager of Wichita, and they have offered us some training opportunities, although not adequate, in my opinion. I showed those proposals to our leadership in our fire department, and they confirmed it would not be beneficial to us for that to be the agreement if we were to move forward. What I would love to see, if I could raise this issue this way, is I would love to see a partnership with Wichita on law enforcement training to jointly train with them in a state-of-the-art facility. And I think that along with that, I would like to jointly train with Wichita on a fire in a state-of-the-art facility. Well, it just so happens they have a state-of-the-art facility. We just don't have access to it. Not adequate access. I would love to have a partnership there as well. And so here's the point. We don't really have a way to make that happen. The fire district, of course, is low on resources to be able to get into that. It's my vision. If I could, I would say it's my vision that one model would be we would have law enforcement and firefighters and other public safety type training like 911, EMSS, CPR, you name it, all in one facility. Would be similar to what the Heartland was proposing, only smaller. It'd be a county-based facility, and it would have something that does all types of public safety training, and the fire department would have the resources they need to train in that facility. That would be one model. I can imagine what that would look like. If law enforcement gets the chance to jointly train with Wichita in the state-of-the-art facility, then that need is met, but we still have all the other needs. And I wish it was really a regional training center. It should be including the other 19 facilities. I'm sorry, other 19 cities inside Sedgwick County. Invite them to be partners as well. The taxpayers own these things. It is important that we recognize that the more we partner with these other entities, the more we work together, the better public safety gets. Anyway, it is a vision of mine that if we can't come together on joint law enforcement training, that we would in fact have a facility that would have law enforcement and everything else in one facility. If we can come together on joint law enforcement training, that's wonderful. But we still have a need for other training. To me, the easiest and most likely solution to that would be for us to jointly train with Wichita in the state-of-the-art facility that they already own. I have asked commissioners, and again, commissioners here today that were here at the time, if they'd like to speak to this, that's great. I'd please invite you to say what you want to say here. But I've asked some of the commissioners around the community that have been here previous to this current board, and there's a couple of those, at least one of those that's already on this board right now, whether or not they were given the opportunity to partner with Wichita on the Regional Fire Training Center. Unfortunately, the answer was, from their perspective, they don't have any recollection of that discussion happening. And it could be that the chief of our fire department turned down that opportunity. That's possible that happened. I don't know if that's true or not true. I have no idea who decided that this wasn't good for Sedgwick County. It could be that manager before Manager Scholes was here. Maybe he made a decision this wasn't interested. That Sedgwick County was not interested in this opportunity. I don't know if it was offered or not. I did ask the question to Wichita. They said it was offered to Sedgwick County, and we turned it down. But the question is, who turned it down? Whether it was the fire department themselves or whether that was our manager, I don't know. But I can tell you that a partnership there makes just as much sense as it does for Law Enforcement Training Center. And I am disappointed that we have 508,000 people in this county to protect. We've got a tremendous investment by taxpayers to protect the citizens of Sedgwick County. And although we're doing really well on the law enforcement side, and I hope we continue doing really well, we've got a huge need on the fire department side. And we're doing the very best we can with what we have. And I appreciate that, but we can do better. And the public, I think, demands the best. And so right now we're not doing what we can. So I think there's a couple of different ways this can go here. What I'm being asked right now by the bid board is for us to support something that's going to cost the county $1.65 million above our low bid. Let me just say, if we had a partnership with Wichita to solve our other training needs, I think that may be a great recommendation. But short of that, we might need that cash to go solve this problem another way. So I'm reluctant to support the recommended action today because I don't know that we have cash to do both. And if I accept this recommendation, it limits my ability to solve the problem of our other public safety training needs. So I guess I would ask our manager to continue to work with the folks across the street, Manager Robert Layton, and see if there's ways that you guys can get together to have a memorandum of understanding or a letter of intent that would allow us to be partners at the RFTC. I think partnership ought to be our vision again here and there, both for law enforcement and for fire training. And along with that, we would like to make sure that we have the same credentialing for our EMS personnel. We had a nice budget hearing, I think it was 2 days ago. We talked about EMS credentialing. We have the chief medical officer for Sedgwick County that has developed a tremendous program to demonstrate hands-on proficiency, and with that training comes credentialing from his department. And he's offering that for every firefighter across the county. And I think that we're certainly want to participate in that to make sure we have the best skills, demonstrated skills, and the credentials we need to provide that best quality to those folks that have emergencies. The problem is, if you call 911 and a firefighter shows up, you want to know they got the best skills possible. They've been trained to know everything they could possibly know, and they can do anything that is thrown at them to the best of their ability, because we've given them all the resources they need to be the very best. And right now, that's not exactly true with fire departments. I know that we have got a wonderful department, and I don't mean any negative comments to them in any way. It's not something they can solve by themselves. The county commission needs to solve it for them. But the state-of-the-art facility matters. We need to have better training opportunities available to our firefighters as well. And so if you call 911, if a firefighter shows up and it's a fire call, It could be that the firefighters that show up from Wichita have some training that our firefighters can't get. It's not possible. It's also possible that if it's a medical call and our firefighters get there first, by the way, which is by design. No offense to our EMTs, our EMS personnel. We've got roughly 40 fire stations across the county. The number of people who can respond to an emergency call from the fire departments is enormously more capable than our EMS personnel. We only have 15 EMS stations, and so more than likely a firefighter will show up first, and that's by design. It's not a bad thing, and so it's fine. We've designed it this way. But it could be that firefighter, if it's from the county, has credentials and verified credentials that other firefighters may not have. Again, another disparity needs to be fixed. So these disparities, in my opinion, are the issue. I want to lean forward and say I'd like to be a partner with Wichita everywhere. I think it's important. Public safety is one of the most important things we do as government. We've got to provide the best, and we're not there. Not where we could be. We are not where we could be right now because we've allowed politics and broken relationships with Wichita to impact these decisions. So it is my vision that we would not just solve LETC. And again, I'm not sure how I can pick a choice off this chart, not knowing how we're going to solve the rest of the problem. I have a motion in just a moment. I'll read that probably, but for right now, we got other comments. So, Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was going to start off with something different, but after your comments, I want to say that I really believe we need to keep these issues separate so that we can have a decision to go forward. There's different funding sources for the fire district than there are for the sheriff's department, and to try to roll EMS and 911 and fire training and police officer training all together, I think is probably not practical, but I'm not sure how wise it is. I think we need to deal with what's in front of us right now. So having made that comment in response to yours, Mr. Chairman, I want to say my first day on the bench, there was a topic came up that was controversial, and I wasn't fully aware of all the details, and I asked for a deferral, and there was a loud moan from the whole room. And so I know how folks really like, this is the business, let's get on with the business. But as a suggestion, would this be, if we think the city has not yet made an official formal vote on this, and we have not, and it's a decision that I think that our citizens want all of us to be in the spotlight on and be responsible for our vote. Is there any sense in let's have an en banc meeting in the very near future where the city council and the county commission get together and stand up for their votes and can make these comments, and we vote at that time to go forward? Since this is a partnership, it has high visibility, police departments involved, sheriff's offices involved. So I'm not sure how strongly I'm trying to advocate this. I'm trying to ask if there's anybody else that thinks perhaps an en banc for this specific issue would be a reasonable next step rather than us voting today.
Okay. And just for our listening audience, the word en banc, it's E-N-B-A-N-C. En banc means that the city and the county would have both governing boards in a session together jointly. And we would, again, we've had these in the past, not since I've been here, but there have been a number of en banc meetings that have happened in the past. And, of course, being an open meeting, they could take up real business and actually vote independently during that meeting. So that is one option that could be done. And I'll just tell you, I did offer this to the mayor before there was an announcement from the city that they were going in this direction. I think that the idea of an en banc, to me, when we have a partnership where we have to get to the same page somehow, to me that made sense. But we did offer the idea to Wichita before their announcement that happened a few months ago, and unfortunately that was declined. But continuing to meet with Wichita, I think, is imperative. Again, I have a meeting planned with the mayor tomorrow. Just let the public know we're planning on meet tomorrow, hopefully to continue some of this discussion. But And I understand the previous commissioner's comments. We'd rather not mix these things up. My problem with that is we have limited cash, and if I commit more cash to this bid item than is necessary, then it limits my ability to solve the problem other areas that we have needs for. And again, the public safety, it's unfortunate that a regional fire training center is really not regional. It has been not totally exclusively used for Wichita, but there have been other departments that have had access to that once in a while, but not like partners. And again, we don't have a lot of ability to pay for that training within the fire district. But what I envision is a public safety training center where the fire department would actually get to use it. It would be Sedgwick County government creating the training center. It would not be just for fire department. It would be for whatever public safety training needs would be out in the community. And it would be a partnership with other cities as well. It would not be just Wichita. It would not just be Sedgwick County. It would be as many partners as we can find that have a need. So my interest in the reason I raised this issue entirely, number one, I want the public to know we have a regional training center that's not regional. We have needs to train our fire department, our firefighters, that we cannot possibly train them to the highest degree possible. We just don't give them the facilities and the tools they need to do that training. And again, if that's true, to some degree, public safety is not as good as it can be. And I can say that public safety has been harmed to some extent. And again, the taxpayers own that training center. I know Wichita made the decision to put in $5.8 million, and I appreciate that. But again, let's be clear, that's owned by taxpayers. We provide fire protection services inside the city of Wichita to the very same people. I think there's arguments I can make that say that we ought to find a way to get together on other areas of public safety, become partners broadly, not just narrowly with LATC. LATC is vitally important, and I'm committed to that. I believe that my colleagues here are also committed to jointly training in a state-of-the-art facility. But I don't know how I can choose off this list, knowing what I know. And again, we are time limited. We need to make a decision pretty quickly. We've been putting this off long enough. They've been wanting to have this for previous commissioner said since last century, and I believe he's correct. I think I've heard 17 years. We've talked about doing something better than where they're at right now. There's been discussions of, by the way, just so that everyone knows, Southeast High School has been discussed in the past. It was not offered, not one of the bids. I think that still would have provided a great opportunity. It's a great location. Probably would have been a less expensive option, but that was not offered to us. We talked about Judge Riddell Boys Ranch. There's some unique good things about that location. There's also some disadvantages, and so we did. I'm not sure about my colleagues, but I personally discounted the idea of JRBR as a legitimate location. But how do we move forward? I guess right now I'm not sure I can make my mind up on which one of these to support, because I feel like we've got a much larger discussion that has to be solved somehow. And if I have to choose based on what I know right now, then I'm not sure I'm willing to accept something that's a higher cost, which limits my ability to fix this, to solve the problem in other areas that, in my opinion, must be solved. And I did talk to Manager Scholes about some ways that he could negotiate with Wichita to create some equity between Wichita and Sedgwick County in terms of long-term relationship on a partnership for the Regional Fire Training Center. I think he's got some tools at his fingertips. He could talk about some things he could bring up to create equity between Sedgwick County and Wichita to make that agreement possible. Again, I'll stop for a little bit. Commissioner Norton?
Well, I hesitated to even speak today on this issue because I've spoken on it for 15 and a half years. I first started talking about the Law Enforcement Training Center in the middle of a tornado as the mayor of Hayesville. Just happened the Adjutant General of the state showed up and had a vision for a preparedness center that included National Guard, Highway Patrol, Sedgwick County, Wichita, both fire organizations, 911, and the Marines. And we worked on that, had a plan. Now the federal side has been done. But along the way, politics got into it, and arguments got into it, and fractured relationships got into it. And we ended up having a facility up there for the National Guard, but nothing for police and fire, particularly on the Sedgwick County side. And the city did move forward. There was a lot of dynamics to that. I probably know way too much that I'm not going to talk about today because I don't think it's appropriate. We owe it to our public safety folks to have great facilities. And if you've been up into the facility on North Meridian, you know we have skimped on that for our law enforcement for many, many, many years. So I think we need to keep that as a separate issue and move forward in some manner. Now, whether this was a bid process or an RFP process, those are two distinctly different kinds of ways to get to a final end. And we can revisit this if we need to, but you know, we've sat on our hands on this issue for way, way too long. And unfortunately, along the way, we've fractured many of our relationships and partnerships that are needed to be able to find something that is best for the community and the taxpayer. Now, I hesitate to even say this, but sometimes, and I quote this from The Right Stuff, no bucks, no Buck Rogers. If you don't come up with some money to build what's adequate, you don't end up with the best trained people. And that was the whole idea for John Glenn saying that in The Right Stuff. No bucks, no Buck Rogers. If you don't invest in people and their training and the facilities to get them there, you don't have the best and the brightest. You can't recruit the best and the brightest. So on law enforcement, we need to step up, figure out what is best, swallow hard and try to partner with the city if we can and move this forward. For me, it's been way too long. I've probably written 30 articles about this over the years, and we still have not made any progress on it. So I'm hopeful that real soon we can make a decision that is best for our community. Now, I also don't think we need to tie it to 14 other things that we think need to be done. They need to be handled, yes. I don't know that we're in a position right now to fight over a fire training center when we hadn't resolved all the issues with our own fire department. We've got big issues there that we're going to deal with today a little bit. We need to make these decisions not in a vacuum, but with our partners across the street and with the taxpayers in mind. It's interesting that the original number to build all of the training centers at the Heartland Training Center was $12 million the first time that I worked on it. Now it grew to $30 million, the little mission creep. But once it got to some of those numbers, everybody got their backs up, started talking about it, fighting about it, and it was easier, instead of trying to get the cost down and come to something reasonable, just for everybody to walk away and be mad. Now we are 17 years later and aren't any better off than we were. I'm very saddened by the politics that gets involved in public service. You know, our guys in law enforcement and EMS and firefighting are public servants. They're not politicians. They want to serve the public and do it in a manner that's honorable and consistent with their values. And I'm very saddened that we've got to this point that we're arguing about it one more time, going to put it off, going to defer it, and not come to any decision. And I understand that there's been people out there that have put together bids, tried to give us a reasonable alternatives for what we need to do. But we can't sit on our hands any longer on some of these issues. We need to move forward. I don't know, it sounds like we're going to defer it one more time to me. And I guess I'll acquiesce to that, but I find that sad. I don't know that we're going to by deferring, make any difference with our relationship with the city. I don't think that's going to change anytime quickly, as long as we continue to have the kind of philosophy that we have towards other governments and other jurisdictions. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you for your comments, Commissioner Norton. Commissioner Norton, let me just say that you made a comment that you want to get the politics out of this. You want to do what's right, and I believe that's exactly what I want too. How do you describe? The fact is, I think I'm making a moral argument that the community needs the best training possible. Taxpayers own a facility. I want to use these things to the greatest extent possible. The fact is, our firefighters deserve the best as much as our law enforcement deserves the best. And we've never solved the problem for the firefighters. What I'm proposing is a broad partnership for public safety training. It's not just about law enforcement. And I've been talking about this and asking about this for months. This is not something new that just came up today. And I am passionate about this, and my goal is let's solve it for yes. Let's get it done. Why we can't get along and get together on this as a partnership, that's politics. It's not because we're not trying. We want to do this. It's the right thing to do. The public deserves it. So politics is the problem, and I'm proposing we get around the politics. Let's go past that. Let us create partnerships for public safety. The public deserves the best. Unfortunately, because of politics, they're not getting the best. And I think that's unfortunate. In terms of deferring this, again, we've talked about this has been going on for close to 2 decades now, a desire to replace this. I am committed, I'll say it once again, I'm committed to selecting something that will provide a state-of-the-art facility to jointly train law enforcement, Wichita and Sedgwick County. And that's not going to get deferred for, in my opinion, even a month or 6 months or a year or forever. I think we're very close to a decision here. At least I feel like we are. But 1 week is not necessarily going to, my opinion, should not be characterized as pushing this off for a long time. I think we're closer now than we ever have been to solving the problem. We've got a number of options in front of us. It's just not as easy just to pick one off the page. And I think there's a lot more to this than just simply saying we're going to just accept this without understanding exactly how we got here and whether this is the best we can do and other issues that are similar to it. I think we need to address not just law enforcement, but I think other areas as well. And again, to characterize this as pushing this off or not doing it or putting this off for a long time, as if it's going to be years, in my opinion, is not one of the options on the table. I think we're going to solve this very quickly. If not today, we'll solve it soon. But I don't know that 1 week makes a bit of difference. I do want to give the manager time to have these discussions. I want the community to be aware of the controversies and be aware of where we're at. One thing that I've been aware of, the community has not known. And I've described this dilemma of inequity, the fact is we can do better, to people in my circles as I've talked about this. Usually the reaction is, you guys need to go get this fixed. It needs to be fixed. It's a moral issue. Do it right away. Get it done. They want it fixed. They're not aware of the problems I'm describing. So what I've described today, I think, allows the media and the public to be aware of it. I want it fixed. I think partnerships are the answer. I'm just one commissioner. If other commissioners want to vote differently, that's their prerogative. It's their choice. It's fine for them to do that. For me personally, I've identified, I think, a bigger problem, and I would like to solve it. And again, I've tried to talk with folks, trying to find ways to get there. I'll tell you, I have a couple of draft proposals. I worked with our county counselor. He helped me. It's just Jim Howell. It's not the commission, just me. Put some stuff on paper as to how the LETC would work. There's some things about who owns the building, how do you split up O&M, or operations and maintenance, other details like that. We've put together some ideas on paper. I have a similar thing for the Regional Fire Training Center. Just some things I put on paper. It's a draft, just an idea from me to talk to the city. And these were not, in my opinion, seriously considered by the city. Maybe these will get some more attention now. I want to solve for yes. I want to get the politics out of the way. I think the public safety needs to be as good as it can be, not just in one area, but in every area. And the reality is the public, I think, has not been aware. You are now. And so there's an opportunity, I think, for the community to respond and say, what do you want? Do you want us to partner with Wichita and provide the best training possible? Do you want us to solve these things and become partners or not? If the answer is no, then fine. We'll just do LETC by itself and we'll stay status quo everywhere else. Or we can have a better discussion and say, let's fix it here and there. All I'm asking for is a letter of intent, or memorandum of understanding that actually creates the intent to create that partnership. It doesn't have to be complex. We don't have to have everything understood exactly. But what is our intent? What do we want to accomplish? It is nothing more than something that can be done very, very quickly. I've got proposals already out there. They can change those if they like. But to do this is not as hard as it sounds. So far, my proposals have landed on deaf ears. I'm hoping that the community, now they understand the things that need to be fixed. I'm asking for, I guess, what is the response? Do we want to fix these things or not? If we want to fix them, now's our chance. And if we go down the go down the recommended option here on this chart, it limits our ability to fix it independently of the city of Wichita. So that's a problem for me. Commissioner Unruh?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In order to move us along, I would move that we instruct the manager to schedule an en banc with the city of Wichita as soon as possible to discuss the singular issue of the law enforcement training center and how we move forward as partners.
Second. We have a motion and a second. I don't see any other discussion yet. Commissioners, do you have any comments on the motion? Commissioner Peterjohn?
Well, I'd feel more comfortable if we could take up the entire issue in terms of improving community safety and the idea of trying to expand our partnership. And we haven't had an en banc. I'm trying to remember, it has occurred since I've been on the bench, but it has literally been years. I'm thinking back. The last one that jumps out of my mind, and as far as I can, concerned Amtrak service into this community. So, and that goes back quite a way. So I would like to make a substitute motion that we schedule an en banc meeting with the city to discuss our public safety facilities, including the law enforcement training center, and the issue more broadly than Commissioner Unruh initially proposed, because I'd like to get, we haven't had this in a while. I think it would be very helpful. I think it would be important for the public, and since we have these items in front of us that have gone public here, we can get more public input between now and then. So I'd make that as a substitute motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Commissioner Ranzau?
Just a question, do we have a timeline?
Well, May 18th is when we need to either extend our deadline for accepting or rejecting these proposals. That's one issue. The other is I want to clarify on the motion. The RFP that we issued was not a joint RFP with the city, even though they were involved in the process. It's our RFP, and so I'm assuming that the en banc wouldn't be for the purpose of making a decision on these proposals. It would be more of a general or generic discussion about public safety. Is that a fair statement?
Well, that's a fair statement for my motion. Unfortunately, it hasn't had a second yet, so my motion may be moot, Mr. Counselor.
Well,
but that was my intent.
Pertaining to en banc, I want to make sure that that's what we're talking about.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Counselor. However, the intent of my motion is to get a decision on this, and I don't know how you can do it legally, or whether we'd have to vote and they'd have to vote, but let's get us together and make a public decision. We're all accountable for our votes.
I think if your motion were to pass, for instance, the discussion at that en banc would be to decide what you want to do regarding LETC and whether or not you want to include fire. and then you all would then vote on the RFP.
Okay. That, however you can work that out for us.
I think that'd probably be the safest way.
All right.
Commissioner
That's the
Rand.
intent of my motion.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Unruh. Commissioner Ranzau?
I was just going to second Commissioner Peter John's motion for discussion purposes. I'm not sure how I'll vote on it, but
I guess my concern is we don't probably have time in our schedule to schedule an en banc meeting between now and the 18th. So we may need to have a subsequent motion to extend this at least a little bit to give us time to make this happen. Again, I don't want this to be perceived as a big delay in the process. I mean, we've got to be. I want everyone to know we're committed to doing this as quickly as possible. The problem is, the community's been unaware, I think, that we've been working on this for a while. Their assumption is, man, you got the bids last fall. What's taking so long? Well, it's taken a while because we're trying to work out the bugs here. This is another probably a necessary delay. Not a delay just to be delaying, but a delay for a purpose. We've got to get together and move forward together. But that might require us to push us back for a couple of weeks just to make that happen. So again, I don't know what their schedule is. I'm not sure how complicated it would be for us to schedule an en banc. Again, I offered this as a way to move forward in the past, and it was rejected. So whether or not they're willing to do that, it's really up to them. It requires both sides to play here. I don't know if they would be willing to do this or not. But up to this point, it's been on the table and hasn't been accepted up to this point. So I don't know if this will change things or not.
Mr. Chairman, if I can interject,
yes, sir.
Please, sir. This May date is an extension we've already asked for. So any other extension will be a second extension beyond the 120 days that we give the proposal. So that's just background information for you. Of course, we'll have to ask the 4 responders whether they're willing to make a second extension. So this won't be the first.
And if any one of those 4 doesn't want to do that, then what happens?
We'll have to talk about it.
It's not known.
I really, we would have to talk about. What we could do is we could say then if whoever doesn't want to do it and whoever does want to do it would eliminate that particular responder, and we could deal with the remaining responders. Am I correct,
right,
Counselor?
Right. If someone didn't want to delay it another week or another month or whatever it would be, they would have the right then to withdraw their proposal.
Okay. Here's what I think we ought to do here. I think we ought to go ahead and we'll vote on this motion in here in just a moment, but I'm going to make a motion after that we visit this again on the 18th, and we'll see whether or not we need to make an action to delay this.
Okay.
To make the en banc. We'll ask Wichita to do the en banc and see what they say. We'll schedule that, see what the date is. We may need to push this date back again with the permission of our bidders to see whether or not they're willing to do that or not. We'll talk to counselors and see whether or not this works. But I think we need to have 2 motions. Well, the first motion's already been made. It is a substitute motion for us to get together as an en banc meeting to talk about LETC plus other aspects of public safety. And then if this passes, I think the motion I'll make in just a moment would be for us to push this topic back to May 18th for us to consider any other action, whether it be another delay, based on your recommendation and the recommendation of our counselor manager, so we can at least move forward. Or maybe maybe on the 18th we could just finalize it and say we're going to pick something and move forward. So the 18th, I guess, is just a topic on. We'll just put an agenda item on the agenda for us to continue this discussion, and actions will be TBD. I guess we'll say it that way. All right. So we have a motion right now to ask Wichita for an en banc. The date will be TBD, and assuming that happens, we'll be able to find a way to move forward. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And by the way, I will be supportive of this motion. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Commissioner Unruh?
Would somebody recite the motion for me so that I know what it is that Commissioner Peter John's motion is that we have an en banc for what purpose?
It was more broadly defined, and I'm more pleased with the motion after hearing the counselor's remarks in terms of keeping us on safe legal ground. But the idea was that we would set up an en banc meeting without a specific date but hopefully it would be soon, to discuss public safety training related issues.
So that doesn't really have anything to do with the motion I made.
It was a substitute in terms of it was a more broader motion because it would I would view it as including the LETC but not limited to.
Well, our RFP was for the LETC. It wasn't for this broad description of conversation. So I would like to address the issue before us, and I'm not opposed to having another en banc, but I think we got two different things here.
Well, Commissioner, if you don't mind, it's let's go ahead and vote on the substitute motion. If you want to vote no, and your motion will still be on the table. Your motion is different than his in that yours is only going to talk about law enforcement training center.
I know.
His motion would say, let's talk about that plus other public safety issues that I've raised today.
So they're exclusive issues. One is a whole deal. One is to deal with the issue before us. Are we going to?
They're competing motions. If Commissioner Peterjohn, first of all, apparently I'm the parliamentarian for an organization that has no rules, but I want to point out that I think that if his motion passes, it wipes out yours. If it fails, we're back on yours.
Well, I understand that procedure. However, if his passes, it doesn't imply we're going to make a decision on the law enforcement training center. There's no implication in that.
Well, there's certainly no guarantee of that. That's correct. But I think as far as I'm just the scrivener here, I just want to make sure that we all understand that it's a generic discussion, but that there isn't, in fact, any expectation that we would vote, that you all would vote on this RFP, even at that en banc, because it's only the 5 of you who get to do that.
Well,
all right, Commissioner Peterjohn, do you understand? Is that part of your motion? Do you
I mean,
understand that?
basically, I'm not trying to force a commitment. What I am doing is leaving the door open in terms of where we could proceed, and I think the en banc would clarify and clear the air in a way that hasn't occurred so far in our current discussions that have been going on concerning training of our public safety folks.
Okay. Well, I want to vote for my motion, so I'm going to vote against Carl's, or Commissioner Peterjohn. So there we go.
And just for, let me recognize Commissioner Ranzau.
And so, just a question for the chairman, probably, if one of these two motions passes and the city declines those offers, what's the next step, or what? How are we going to address that?
It would be my intention between now and next time we publish an agenda here in a couple of days, we'll have that known. We may need to, on the 18th, take different actions depending on whether or not they accept our invitation for an en banc.
I would think that for control purposes, you'd want to move this agenda item over to the 18th, regardless, because we won't hear back from the city probably immediately. Maybe we will.
So if one of these passes, then we'll have to have another motion to move this to the 18th.
Correct.
And let me say further, we would have the opportunity to, the en banc again also has no rules, and so one of the questions I had when I talked to the city about this was when you have 12 elected folks representing 2 governing bodies in one room, how do you vote? Who goes first? And that type of thing. It's my assumption that we would have opportunities for the city council to vote independently of us. They could go first or second, and same with the county commission. We could do business if we want to.
Well, I've never been a part of one of those en banc meetings, but I would think that it would require a majority of both sides at that en banc to adopt some generic idea or concept.
So as I've described it, the county commission is a majority vote, and the city council is a majority vote. It's 2 independent bodies.
Right.
Okay. And so we have the opportunity to actually conduct business in an en banc if we want to. It's an open meeting. We'll have an agenda item. And if we want to make a decision regarding LETC, we certainly can do that at that meeting. If we wanted to defer that from that meeting and have other time to discuss it privately or to think about it privately and come together at a future meeting after that en banc, we would have the chance to do that as well. So I think that Commissioner Peterjohn's motion doesn't preclude the opportunity for us to make a vote on the LETC. Is my opinion. But all right, any other discussion? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
No.
Commissioner Norton?
No.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. All right. Commissioner Peterjohn?
Well, I'm going to make another motion that we defer this item at least until May 18th.
And just for clarity, may I just suggest we go ahead and just say it will be on May 18th. We'll discuss this item again. Action at that time will be, I think, probably dependent on whether or not Wichita accepts the en banc invitation. But so we need. I don't want to say at least until May 18th. Let's just say it'll be on May 18th.
Okay. Well, I think that's fine.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Any discussion on that motion? All right. Seeing no other discussion, Madam Clerk, please call that vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
No.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. Okay.
Thank
Well, thank you,
Commissioner,
for all your help today.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to the next item, please, Madam Clerk.
Consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, Mike Scholes, County Manager. Request you approve consent agenda items P or Papa through Alpha Golf or AG minus Victor, which deals with the Law Enforcement Training Center project.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. Okay. We've been going a long time here. I'd like to go ahead and wrap up the regular part of this
Chairman?
meeting. Yes, sir.
I think we need to do something with V, though, one way or
With
another.
V. Okay.
Make an motion to defer
All right.
until some
To the 18th.
indefinitely.
To the May 18th.
Well, actually, may I make a suggestion? We would defer it to a future date. I don't know that even on May 18th is not the right date, in my opinion. Let's assume for just a minute we make a decision on LETC. Can we not deal with item V at a future date from that?
Mr. Chairman, it's
Yes,
my
sir.
understanding that if on May 18th you vote for the LETC, this has to be tied to it.
So it has to be the same meeting.
Correct.
All right.
So to leave your options open, it may be best to tie it to the May 18th. And then whatever, depending on what you do then with law enforcement training center vote.
All right. Well, I accept your explanation. I would make a motion. We move item V to the May 18th agenda.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. If it's agreeable to my colleagues here, I'd like to skip legislative issues this week. We got enough on the agenda ahead of us still. I'd like to skip that item. Is that acceptable to my colleagues? Okay. I would like to go ahead and recess the regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners and call to order the Governing Board of Sedgwick County Fire District Number 1. And it'll be my intention in just a moment. We're going to need to take a break. So we're going to go ahead and do roll call and everything else. But before we get into the hearing, I'd like to take a break. We've been sitting here almost 2 hours and 45 minutes at this point. So we'll need to take a break here. But so, Madam Clerk, first item, please.
Roll call. Commissioner Unruh?
Present. Commissioner
Norton?
Present.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Present.
Commissioner Ranzau?
Present.
Chairman Howell?
Present. If it's agreeable to my colleagues, I think we ought to take a break before we get to public agenda. How much time do you all need? 15 minutes?
That's plenty.
Okay. 15 minutes acceptable to you, everyone? 15? I would like to recess until noon. So we're going to take a break from now till noon. When we come back, our next thing will be public agenda. We'll do minutes, and then we do new business, which will be a hearing, and we'll talk about that when we come back from the break. So we'll be recess in the fire district meeting until noon. Thank you. All right, everyone, we are now back from our recess. I'll call to order once again the governing board of Fire District number 1, Sedgwick County Fire District number 1. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Public agenda.
All right, I'd like to know, is there anybody here who wants to speak on behalf of this agenda today from the public? Anybody here? If there is, please raise your hands.
Thank you.
Oh, we have one person who signed up to speak.
Well, I mean, you're going to speak when we get
He'll speak anyway. You know, he's part of the hearing process, so no problem there. Anybody else want to speak for a public agenda today before we get going into the hearing? All right, seeing none. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Consideration of minutes. Item A, regular fire meeting minutes of April 13th, 2016.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the regular minutes of the fire meeting of April 13th, the special fire meeting on April 18th, and the special fire meeting on April 20th.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the vote.
Commissioner Unruh?
Aye.
Commissioner Norton?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterjohn?
Aye.
Commissioner Ransall?
Aye.
Chairman Howell?
Aye. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
New business. Item D, hearing to present and consider positions of Fire District Number 1 and I.A.F.F. Union Local Number 2612 regarding contract negotiations for Memorandum of Agreement, January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2017.
All right. Commissioners, what we're going to do here is we're going to have a hearing. I'm going to split it up this way. I talked with I think both sides of this. I think both sides said this was fine. We're going to open the public hearing, and then the union attorney will have 30 minutes to present any information he wants to present to the county commission. Then we'll have that will be followed by 45 minutes that the county attorney will also have the same opportunity. And we'll have 15 minutes of questions and answers for the county attorney, followed by 15 minutes of rebuttal opportunity for the union attorney, and then 15 minutes of questions and answers for the union attorney. That is a 2-hour plan. Again, anybody who wants to use less time, that's totally fine. But we'll try to stick to those time limits and not go beyond them if possible. So that's a 2-hour plan. It is just a little bit after noon, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'd like to go ahead and open up the hearing for both sides to present and consider positions of Fire District Number 1 and I.A.F.F. Union Local Number 2612 regarding the contract negotiations. And with that, I'd like to ask you, sir, to please introduce yourself, and you have 30 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, I'm Steve Bucati. I am and have been the attorney for Firefighters Local 2612 for the last 20 years. First of all, I want to thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our position today. I believe you're generally aware of the circumstances. I'll give you a brief background of how we ended up here. As you know, these parties have been parties to collective bargaining agreements literally for decades, and they began negotiations for a new contract in the spring of last year. Finally, in November of 2015, the parties declared impasse. Pursuant to the procedures, a fact-finding hearing was held in this room on January 26 and 27 before arbitrator Colleen White, who I'll tell you a little bit about. The hearing lasted 2 full days. The parties presented several witnesses' testimony and dozens and dozens, I believe probably close to 100 exhibits altogether. One thing I did want to mention, and speaking with counsel for the Fire District, I did not realize that you did not have a copy of the union's exhibits to the hearing, and what I'd like to do at the conclusion today is to leave you our complete set of exhibits so you can have them to review, because there are some things in there dealing with pay on the various departments in the state and their contracts and some other things I think that would be of interest to you before you reach a decision. I want to talk just real briefly about our fact finder, Colleen White. She's what happens is the Public Employee Relations Board, PERB, provides parties a list of arbitrators They struck names. Both sides agreed that Arbitrator White would be our fact finder. She's a highly respected arbitrator with years of experience in labor relations. Before she became a full-time arbitrator, she was the director of the Missouri Division of Labor Standards. So she's got a lot of experience in dealing with wage issues, compensation, and in the fact-finding, the only issues were compensation. There were three issues, basically. An overall pay increase, whether we would unfreeze the pay steps. As you know, they have a stair-step pay system and had been frozen in the previous contract or reduced. And also the longevity system had been frozen. One of the exhibits we introduced, it was a decision from a 1999 fact-finding between the same parties. And in that case, Arbitrator Ronald Iacovetta, who was a longtime professor at WSU, issued a decision that, most interestingly, is very similar to what Arbitrator White found. And they followed standard procedures, which is basically looking at, well, let me back up. Sedgwick County Fire District number 1, in terms of manpower, is the 4th largest fire department in the state. Both Arbitrator Iacovetta and Arbitrator White followed the general practice that in determining compensation, these firefighters should be compared to the firefighters on the comparable departments. And we submitted evidence dealing with the top 6 in terms of size in the state, which are Kansas, which is actually the unified government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, Topeka, Wichita, Overland Park, and Northeast Johnson County, and then, of course, Sedgwick County. The fire district agreed that Overland Park and Wichita were comparable departments, and I don't think they really argued that the others were not. Their testimony was Overland Park should be considered because of its size and proximity, and as the arbitrator noted in her decision, Kansas City, Kansas, and Topeka are actually closer and are actually more in size to Sedgwick County or Wichita. One of the things that is contained in our exhibits that I really request you spend some time looking at are Exhibits 7 and 8. The International Association of Firefighters has a very good research department, and they did a wage survey comparing the wages of Sedgwick County firefighters to the firefighters on these other departments. At their starting pay, they're not too bad, but they immediately fall behind other departments. There are a couple things. One, their wages over a career are substantially less than most of these departments. And secondly, even though they make less money, they work more hours because these other departments get substantially more paid leave. One of the exhibits we have, which is a chart at the end of our Exhibit 8, shows the cost per hour for firefighters. Sedgwick County is at the very bottom, and every one of these other fire departments is substantially ahead. After hearing all of the evidence, and a couple things I think you're probably aware of. First of all of these departments have stair-stepped pay matrices where you start out at a certain level and you have to work so long to get to the top level. That pay matrix has not been increased since 2011, whereas all these other departments have raised their wages pretty consistently over that period of time. And that partly creates the disparity. And then in the last contract, in addition to taking a wage freeze, the union agreed to reduce the spread between steps. For years, you moved every year 3%, and then at the end, it was a year and a half, the last 3 steps before you would get a raise. The parties agreed to reduce that to 1%, and that has also substantially reduced the pay of our firefighters in comparison to these other departments. Arbitrator White found, based on all the evidence, that Sedgwick County firefighters are, of these 6 large departments, the last in pay, although they're the first in hours worked per year. And in fact, we did a chart that showed over a 25-year career. A Wichita firefighter who will make more money in that career works 2,500 hours less. I mean, that's a whole extra year of work. And we're not asking to change the hours. We're stuck with what we are. but we do request that we at least start to close the gap or stop the continual spread so that Sedgwick County firefighters are so far behind their counterparts. Arbitrator White recommended that, first of all, the pay steps be fixed so that we go back to the 3% spread between steps. And that, secondly, for both 2016 and 2017, the pay matrix would be increased by 2.5%, what we call an across-the-board wage increase. This will still leave us behind all these other departments, but not as far. It actually will increase the gap with Wyandotte County / Kansas City, Kansas, which received a 5% pay increase this year. So, and she also recommended, in addition to restoring the steps, that we fix the longevity. Longevity was also frozen, so we had a bunch of people who did not collect it and people who are not really collecting the longevity based on the years of service because they were frozen in whatever year they were. The parties, in conformity with the statute, returned to the negotiations, and Chairman Howe was there. We negotiated in this building the last week of April. And proposals were exchanged, but no agreement was reached. So by statute, we are here now for you to make a decision. I want to read you the language from the controlling statute once we get to this point. The governing body or a duly authorized committee thereof shall forthwith conduct a hearing, which you're doing now, at which the parties shall be required to explain their positions. And thereafter, the governing body shall take such action as it deems to be in the public interest, including the interest of the public employees involved. So right now it's up to you. And we are asking you to adopt the fact finder's decision, but let me point out a couple other things that are significant here. I was reading from a section of the Public Employee Relations Act, which I'm sure your council's familiar with. That section, another section, 754330, provides that any memorandum of agreement relating to conditions of employment entered into may be executed for a maximum period of 3 years, notwithstanding the provisions of the cash basis law and the budget law. And then he cites the statutory cites for those. And then the statute also defines a memorandum of agreement as an agreement or contract that's been entered into by both sides. The result of all of these statutory sections is if you unilaterally impose a contract, you can only do it for 1 year. If the parties agree to something, they can do it for up to 3 years. So, yeah, and technically, as I mentioned to Mr. North this morning, under the law, the parties have an ongoing duty to negotiate until such time as you reach an agreement or impose a contract. There are several things you can do. You can impose a 1-year contract unilaterally. You can also direct your negotiators to return to the table with more authority to see if they can reach agreement. Now, our position is that the parties should agree to a contract which incorporates the fact finder's recommendations. And we would ask that if you implement a 1-year contract that you at least do what the fact finder recommended for 1 year, which is to fix the steps and a 2.5% pay increase. However, I want to bring to your attention something that happened today. Today, we received a copy of the recommendations which the fire district has made to you, their recommendation for what action you should take. And after reviewing it with the negotiating committee of the firefighters, we made a counter proposal this morning, which is less than what the fact finder recommended. And quite frankly, we think is pretty close to what the fire district's recommendation to the board is. Their recommendation is to unfreeze the steps for 2016, however, then to freeze them in subsequent years, and I'll address why we think that's a bad idea. And then no pay raise in 2016, just fix the steps, put everybody back on the 3% spread. Then for 2017, they recommend a 2% bonus, and for 2018, a 2% bonus. Now again, under the law, the two sides would have to agree to that. I don't think you have the authority to do a 3-year contract. You can do a 1-year. However, our proposal of this morning was, okay, we'll accept, and I understand it's a recommendation. Mr. North made it clear that was not an official proposal. However, we have made an official proposal, which is less than what the fact finder recommended. We would agree with the fire district. Let's unfreeze these steps, because that's one of the reasons we're falling so far behind. Our steps are frozen, and then these other guys on these other departments are moving up through their scale. So there'd be no pay raise, no across-the-board pay raise for 2016. Just fix the steps, put people where they belong in the pay matrix. For 2017, we can accept the 2%, but not as a bonus. Our offer is make that a wage increase, and the same for 2018. Now, for the board's purposes, there's no additional cost for those years. Whether you pay it as a bonus or a wage increase, it's 2%. The reason we are really insistent that if we're going to reach a 3-year deal, that this has to be a wage increase, is otherwise we continue to fall further behind these other departments who are not paying bonuses but are periodically increasing their pay matrices. And understand that under this proposal we made this morning, we will still be behind all these other departments. We will not catch them, but at least hopefully we will narrow the gap a little bit. The other thing we agreed to do in our proposal of today is to withdraw our proposal to fix the longevity. We would just agree as a concession, leave the longevity where it is, and if this were accepted, the parties would be back at the table sometime in 2018, and hopefully they could address longevity at that point. But what we're looking for it was a compromise. And we felt that the recommendations prepared by the county counselor's office formed the basis for a compromise and something that we felt that our members could live with, and we've adopted, and in my opinion, we've adopted most of what they proposed. The only big difference is 2 things. One, the steps should remain unfrozen, and secondly, just rather than a bonus, make it a wage increase. But the numbers should be the same. It's my understanding from what I saw in the press in the last few days that the county is recommending 2.5% wage increases for most of its county employees for the next 4 years, as I understand it, because they determine their wages are below the market. And quite frankly, I laud the county for doing that. I think it's very important that you try to stay competitive. We're asking that you do the same thing for the fire district, although arguably it won't make us real competitive, but it will help close the gap a little bit. Our wages, it's pretty clear from these 2 fact findings, the firefighters' wages in this district have been below the market for at least the last 17 years. The cost of our proposal is something I think that we would look at if we were. I will tell you today, we made that proposal, and we will live with the proposal we made, which is less than what the fact finder recommended. To me, the important thing about that is, obviously, the county has determined the recommendations, I understand, but they've determined they can afford to fix the steps. And in the hearing, the evidence was that fixing the steps was roughly $58,000, because it's not a pay increase, it's just putting people where they belong on the steps. And then for the next 2 years, both sides are proposing 2%. It's just we want it in a wage increase so that it's part of their salary. Going forward, arguably there could be an additional cost, but again, the parties will be back at the table in 2018 before there would be any significant increase in the wages, because whether you call it a bonus or wages, you're going to pay 4% over 2 years. And we're asking, and again, so we don't fall further behind, that it be part of the wage structure. And as I mentioned, all of these other departments have the same type. This is common in public safety, both police and fire, that you start at a certain level and then periodically you move up until you top out. One of the things about the stair-step system, too, and we had testimony about this, and I know Mr. North disputes it, but our expert who has testified all over the country demonstrated that once you fully implement it, there will be a cost to put people back where they belong. But once you implement that, there's not a significant cost over time, because right now your firefighters top out at $60,000. And every time a firefighter retires, you're replacing him or her with a firefighter at $40,000. So even though there is some step movement, you also have a lot of people at the top of the scale that do not move because they've topped out. So over time, there's not a significant cost in these stair-step systems. And quite frankly, that's why we see in all these other departments that they have these stair-step systems. You know, in our position is as far as finances, first of all, we think that the fact that the county's made this recommendation, or the fire district has made this recommendation, is an indication that the fire district believes it can afford what it's proposing. And we're proposing the same numbers, just let's make it a wage increase instead of a bonus. But, you know, and I understand the district's frugal. I understand that you're careful every year in how you budget. But over the CAFR show that from 2007 through 2015, and the CAFRs, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, are the only audited documents that show what your financial performance was, as opposed to a budget, which is just a forecast. And your average surplus at the end of each year, you underperformed the budget in terms of revenue being more than you budgeted and expenses being less by over $1 million a year. Fixing the steps in the first year is $58,000, and that's all we're asking for in this last proposal we've made. So, I mean, clearly you can afford that. And then going forward, and I understand that the valuation went down last year, but the average revenue increase for this fire district from 2007 through 2014 was over 3%. And we're asking for 2%. The other thing, and I know this is controversial, but we felt pretty strongly about this, is the revenue from the Kansas Star Casino. And I know there's a dispute as to whether or not that revenue can be spent on the fire district. I've been practicing law for 41 years, and I know how to read statutes. There's nothing in the statute that created the Kansas Star Casino and allocated the revenue to you in Sedgwick County and Mulvane. When I say you, I'm talking, of course, about Sedgwick County. And there's nothing in your municipal or county ordinances or in the statute that limits how Sumner County, Mulvane, or Sedgwick County can spend that money. It was pointed out to us, and Mr. Howell is present, in the last negotiation session we had, that only 20% of the taxpayers of Sedgwick County live in the fire district. Well, gentlemen, if you spent 20% of what you receive from the casino on the fire district going forward, you could afford this pay increase easily, and some of the other things you're talking about, like your, and I think you're wanting to have a regional fire training center, I think is laudable, and I hope you reach that someday. The I.A.F.F. is extremely committed to training. They know how important it is and how dangerous, and you guys know how dangerous their job is. But if you just took that 20%, which equates to how many of your taxpayers live in the county, you not only could afford to start helping them catch up to where they belong on the pay scale, you'd have money for equipment, you'd have some money to commit to this training. And my legal opinion is the county is free to spend that money anyone wants to. You know, if you wanted to, you could give it all to the Girl Scouts. Now, I don't know if you'd get reelected if you did that, but there isn't anything in the statute that would prohibit that. And I think it is, and the fact finder found that it was a source of revenue which would help you to pay the wage increases we seek. Although, again, based on the recommendations of the fire district, it's pretty obvious that they think you can afford what we have now proposed. Just unfreeze the steps this year and give us 2% wage increases the next 2 years. And I want to say a couple things. I did sit through a good part of the county commission meeting this morning. As an attorney who spent years representing firefighters and policemen, it was very gratifying to hear some of your comments. Chairman Howell said that we have the best firefighters, that the public demands excellence in our fire protection, and we agree with all of that. He said at one point we've got a wonderful fire department and that the commission needs to help them, and that public safety is the most important thing we do in government. We agree with every one of those. And we think as part of that, you've got to address the tremendous pay disparity that your excellent firefighters suffer under. And you know, I told the fact finder this, and it's true to this day. Even though these guys know they're underpaid, they have never fallen down on the job. And I assume some of you know that some of your fire stations do not meet the national NFPA standards for manpower. We're not even asking for that now, although we'd love to see you take some of that casino money and hire more firefighters, but that's not the issue today. But these guys go out there and they will risk their lives at the drop of a hat, even though they know they're underpaid. Because you're right, they're dedicated public servants. And I think maybe one of you said today that, you know, firefighters are public servants who want to serve the public. I believe that was you, Mr. Norton. And they do. These guys are dedicated. And quite frankly, I think they are deserving of the type of modest wage increase we've asked for. And we ask in conclusion, and our proposal right now is what we've put on the table, which is less than what the fact finder recommended, but which will at least hopefully stop the constant denigration in our wages so that all the other comparable departments just keep going up and up. And I think it's commendable that you as county commissioners, or at least your county has submitted to you a budget proposal that calls for 2.5% for most of your county employees, because they understand that they're behind the market. I mean, that is very obvious for your firefighters. And so we're asking that as of this moment that you direct your negotiators to agree to the proposal we made, which in order for it to be a 3-year deal, it's got to be agreed to by both sides. And if you feel you can't do that, then we ask that if you impose a 1-year contract, you do what the fact finder said, which quite frankly would be more expensive. That's all I have at this point. I understand we'll have questions later.
Yes, again, at the very end of the hearing, the last thing we'll do is have 15 minutes of questions and answers for you. So,
all right. Thanks, gentlemen.
We'll thank you very much, Mr. Bucati. We're going to go ahead and go on to the next step in our hearing here. So, Mr. North, I think you're up.
Mr. Chairman, as I think we've agreed, and I understand at this point in time I have 45 minutes for my presentation, I'd respectfully ask the clerk that when I get down to 5 minutes left in time, will you alert me of that? Thank you. You have a sign. I can even read it. So thank you very much on that. That's what I'm used to when I have appellate arguments before courts too as well. Mr. Chairman, gentlemen of the Commission, my name is Michael North. I'm Assistant County Attorney. I'm here to present the district's position concerning the negotiations with the Firefighters Union. At this point in time, I want to start off with a couple of preliminary comments in response to what my good friend Mr. Bucati has said at this point. He pointed out very accurately that the Commission has not been favored with copies of the union's exhibits. I think it's fair for me to point out that I've not given you any of the copies that the district provided the fact finder at the hearing as well. We are certainly happy to do that. I think it's fair that you see what our presentation included as well. So I just wanted to make clear that we were not trying to tip the balance by giving you stuff and not providing the other sides as well. Second one, in terms of what you can do in terms of you imposing a contract, attorneys in my office, in my department, attorneys that are much smarter than me, and you all, if you've known me for a number of years, you realize that most of the attorneys in my department are smarter than me. I asked to look at this issue about whether we can impose a contract longer than 3 years. They came to the conclusion that we could. had my conversation with Mr. Bucchetti this morning, and he insists that we can only impose a contract in the length of 1 year. So in a panic, I asked one of my attorneys again, take a look at this, and he came up with a case he believes out of what I believe is the city of Lawrence on this that seems to dispute that notion. So that's at least a point we're going to have to clarify for you, that should we not come to an agreement between the parties and there's a unilateral contract imposed, what are your options in regard to time period? I apologize if we feel like we haven't nailed that down at this point in time, but there seems to be a legitimate disagreement about what the law says in that regard. Now, where do we start? According to law, my obligation as a representative of the fire district is to present to you what we believe is a proper proposal for resolving this dispute. And that's basically what I have on the screen for you before now. It's an outline of the fire district's proposal to resolve the impasse that we have with the firefighters union. The district recommends a 3-year contract. That doesn't seem to be an issue of controversy with the union. There's a very good reason for doing it, is because we're already 6 months into the 2016 year, so we're looking at a 3-year contract that will extend for the years 2016 to 2018. The effective date of the agreement will be retroactive back to January 1st, 2016. What we are recommending, and this is, I think, the first step of what even the union is offering here today, or what they're suggesting to you to resolve this matter, is a return to the compensation plan prior to the 2014-2015 contract. What happened before 2014 is, according to the contractual agreements between the bargaining unit and the district, is that the union members got automatic 3% step increases in their pay as they were employed for another year with the fire district. They would automatically move up to another 3%. It was felt at that time, apparently by the people who negotiated the contract, that the financial viability of the fire district could not sustain that. So the parties agreed, and this was an agreement, a bargain for agreement between the parties, about what would happen is that they would replace that provision for a 3% step increase and would tie the step increase in the bargaining agreement to increases in the valuation of the tax base that was established for 2013. This essentially was based on the increased valuation in the tax base as certified by the county clerk. He certified it in 2013. It was found that the increase in the tax base was only 1.15%, significantly lower than what we had had in the past. As a result of that, certainly the bargaining unit members did not get the raises that they had been accustomed to in the past, and it probably was an unwelcome realization. What we are asking for is that we go back to the pay levels that would have been in effect had the 3% step increases been in effect during that period of time. We're not talking about going back and backfilling and paying what they otherwise would have got, but get the pay, the matrix up to that 3% there. However, our proposal doesn't end there. And it just as a matter of background on it, the second bullet point that I have on this is that we replace the current provision that ties the step increases to the increase in the valuation of the tax base. This essentially has a 3-point result. 1/3 of the membership will get no raise at all under this proposal. That's because they started at a point where they would not be eligible for any step increases. About 1/3 will get a raise of 1.8%, and about 1/3 will get a raise of 3.7%. It comes to a little under 2% right away that there'll be an increase in the salary structure for the bargaining unit that will carry forward not only in 16 but 17 as well. However, the compensation plan will be frozen for contract years 2016 and 2018. There will not be a step increase after we implement this and immediately for the 2016 and 2018 3-year period. But we're talking about bonus payments, and this is, I think, was alluded to by counsel a little bit in terms of what we're talking about in terms of adding more compensation to the deal, that we would give a 2% bonus to all members of the bargaining unit in 2017 and 2018, and a 1% bonus to those firefighters and lieutenants in 2016 who will not get raises under the modified compensation plan. That essentially, step by step, is what the district is proposing to resolve the impasse. Now, this is up from our prior negotiating position. Months ago, when there was a negotiating team involved in this process, they offered the bargaining unit 3 options. very quickly to run through these, option 1 was 1% steps for each of 2016 and 17. Option 2 was a 2% bonus for each of 2016 and 17, and option 3, 1% step in 16, a 1% bonus in 2017s. These were all rejected by the bargaining unit. As a result of this, we increased our offer. We did make it better, approaching the union for the negotiations that occurred in the last 2 weeks. Those were rejected as well. Now, in terms of what we're attempting to accomplish by all of this and the necessity for adopting what we think is a reasonable position considering the public interest of everyone involved, there is a theme that is going to be running through my presentation. The theme involves the financial condition of the fire district. The financial condition of the fire district is bad. I'm going to illustrate this in about 3 different steps. Here's the first step. This is what our actual numbers have been in the last 3 years in the operation of the fire district, 2013, 2014. Those come straightly out of the budget books, which are accessible to anybody in this room as an open record. We've now received the numbers for 2015 yet, which I think are also a public number in this. 2013, the fire district lost $698,000. That, when I say lost, I mean the expenditures exceeded the revenue in that amount. 2014 on paper, we had a $506,725 in the black, but I'm going to get into that in a little bit deeper. 2015, the actual numbers are that we were in the red again, almost $35,000. Also appreciate the fact that in 2013 we were under the old pay plan, the one before we adopted the last bargaining contract, which had this 1.15% step increase in it. We were saving money on compensation for everybody in 2014 and 2015, and yet we have these numbers. Now, you would ask, say, Mike, what about 2014? You have this $506,000 figure. Doesn't that look pretty good? No, I think there's fool's gold in that number. And when we look down on the line, that is 2014 considerations, this explains why these numbers are not as optimistic or as cheery as they would be on first blush. First of all, we sold a fire station. And that's something that's a source of revenue that you're certainly not going to see on a continuous basis. You can't sell a fire station every year, but we had property which we sold at that time and got unexpected revenue of over $321,000. We also got an unanticipated double payment for charges of services. Now, what does that mean? There are businesses here in Sedgwick County that are not located in the city of Wichita, but they are tax exempt. They do not pay property taxes. They are still interested in having fire service, and so what they do is they contract with the fire district to provide fire services in an amount of compensation that would be equal to the property taxes that they otherwise would be paying. In 2014, one of these businesses, I forget which one, I think it was Spirit, but I'm not sure, paid twice, paid for 2 years. That is why that line item number, that $680,906 figure, is almost $300,000 more than any year before and the year afterwards. That, again, an unexpected source of revenue that we're not going to see over and over again. The other thing is we held out positions. In 2014 and back in 2012, we had held 2 positions vacant. These were non-bargaining unit positions, but starting 2014, we held 6 positions open, did not fill them. These were bargaining unit positions. They remain unfilled, but that's another reason why the 2014 numbers actually looked better. So this is the reality. We're losing money in the fire district right now under the present structure. Something is going to have to be done over the next few years to try to rectify the situation. How did we get here? What is the explanation for this? The next exhibit, I have my graphic here of the total expenditures of the fire district that have gone up over a number of years. I don't think I need to spend a lot of time with this. I don't think I need to go through the numbers individually, but you can certainly look when we want to go back to 1999 or 2000, what the total expenditures were at that time and compare it with what we had in 2015. We can even go back 5 or 6 years to 9 and 10 and see how much more we're paying in total expenditures at this point than we were in prior years. Now, this is certainly not the bargaining unit's fault. Personnel expenses are the majority of total expenses for the fire district, but they're not the only thing. You have to buy equipment. You have to buy supplies. You have to buy a lot of other things. But the total expenditures, including the personnel expenditures, have gone up fairly substantially over a number of years. But you're going to say, well, Mike, that's only half of the equation. Yeah, you spend a lot, but you're also getting money through tax revenue. So what does this mean in terms of the actual figures? Well, it means this is why we're running the deficits that I've explained to you before, is our tax revenues have flattened out, and that's in the next graphic. This is right out of the budget books. I'm going to play with this just a little bit. Right out of our budget books. Again, it's a public document. Anybody can get these. That for 2014 through 2016, that's in this right-hand side here, it shows what the valuation increases have been for the fire district over the past 3 years. 1.2% in 14, 1.8% in 15, and only 0.9% in 2016. The reality is that our tax revenues are not keeping up with the increase in expenditures. This is not terribly unusual. I don't have a slide to this effect or an exhibit to this effect, but over the past 5 years, the amount of the tax base increase has averaged 1.34% per year in the fire district. That's kind of a number that you maybe want to write down, 1.34%, because we use that when we apply this to some economic assumptions on what we think will happen going forward. Now, that didn't happen all the time. Historically, if we take the 5 years before the last 5 years, the average increase in tax base was about 3.8%. But it has fallen. Everyone, I think, in this room knows that property values have not increased in the past few years as they had back in prior years, and this is the reason that we're having the financial challenges in the fire district that we never had before. And one thing you always want to keep in mind on it, the fire district is almost totally dependent upon property taxes revenues as a source of funds. The county, it's about 50% of our revenue source. In the fire district, it's about 85%. It lives and it dies upon what property taxes will do. Now, moving on, what does that, and there's a couple of other challenges too I want to mention in passing. It's not only a matter in terms of the valuations of the property. The annexations from those cities that have fire districts have hurt us as well, specifically Wichita and Derby. If they annex land that otherwise in the fire district, we no longer get that tax revenue. They don't have to pay twice. They pay taxes to the cities that provide them fire service, but they no longer pay us for any of that fire service. And I'm told by the finance department that annexations between 2011 and 2015 have cost us over $170,000 in 2015 alone. It's carving away a major source of our tax revenue. So essentially our property values have not increased to keep up with the expenditure increases in operating the fire district, and annexations have cut into our tax rolls as well. What does that mean in terms of the implications of the proposal? I'm telling you that we have trouble with the fire district. What does that mean in terms of what the specific subject that we're presenting here today? Next graphic. This is a comparison that our finance department has put together about what the implications are between what the fact finder found in terms of a recommendation and what our fire district proposal is that we're putting forth that I presented in the bullet point earlier in my presentation. Now, I acknowledge the fact, Mr. Bucati, is what he told you, that about an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago, he gave me another proposal on a sheet of paper that the union would be willing to go to. I have not had the opportunity to have finance run through these numbers to tell me what the implication would be. So what I have here, just as a matter of illustration, is to show you this is what the effect would be if we adopted the fact finder's proposal and the position that the bargaining unit had going into negotiations in the last couple of weeks and going into the fact-finding procedure as proposed to the bullet point items that I've outlined earlier. In 2016, if you adopt the proposal, and just for review's sake, what was suggested at that time to the fact finder and what she recommended was returning to the 2012 pay plan. That's part of our deal as well. But then having a 2.5% COLA for the next 2 years, and then initiating 3 steps for the next 2 years as well. If we extrapolate this out between 2016 and 2018, we're going to be operating at an additional deficit of $438,000 for this year alone to make that plan retroactive. That's going to go to $820,000 in 2017 because, again, all those increases go forward, and then we have the increases on top of that. And we're going to be underwater by $1,150,000 and change by 2018. These are dismal figures. Even under what I have proposed to you here today, which again we think is an improvement over what the original negotiating position was of the fire district, we're still operating in the red. We're still going to be $145,000 under for 2016. That's going to go to a little under $445,000 in the red in 17, and it's going to be about $645,000 in 2018. Now, all of this is based on a certain number of assumptions, but I draw them into the figures when I move down to the next screen and draw this out to what we think the effect will be of the various proposals moving forward. Now, all of these have some assumptions. These are projections. These are forecasts. The finance department and budgeting department has put these together based upon a certain number of assumptions, and you have the ability, I think, to evaluate whether these are legitimate or not. But one of them, if we take what the two proposals are, I've already shown you in the prior exhibit between 2016 and 2018 what the effect is. If we draw this forward to 2019 and 2020, make the assumption that under the union request we're going to continue with the 3% step system increase in compensation for 2019 to 2020, we're going to lose an additional $1,225,000 in 19 and $1,273,000 in 2020. Here's the result. You see the line here that talks about ending balance. That essentially is the reserves that we have in place for the fire district. People that are smarter than me that deal with budgets and accounting for governmental entities suggest that you have at least 2 months of your expenditures in your reserve account. That's to cover things like emergencies. That's to cover things that have unexpected expenditures. I heard some reference earlier in this week that we perhaps are going to have to replace our radio system, our communication system with the fire district. People were putting a price tag of that of somewhere about $700,000 to $850,000. That's the kind of thing that you hope your reserves are going to cover. Just to use that as an example. I don't know too much about the specifics about it, but here's the deal. That ending balance goes away by 19 and 20 under the proposal that originally was pushed out by the fire district and was recommended by the firefighter. Essentially, we're out of business by 19 or 20. Even under the district's proposal, we're going to continue to lose money over a period of time, but at least by 2020, we're still going to have some ending balance. We're still in the ball game at this point. Now, this is based on a certain number of assumptions. The assumption, first of all, is that there's going to be, and these are all in text here below the graphic, one of the assumptions is that we will have a flat mill levy rate. There will be no tax increase, no increase in the mill levy. Second assumption is that the assessed value growth of the fire district will continue the 1.34%. In essence, what we've done is taken this 5-year period, looked at the numbers, what a 1.34% annual increase in the tax base would amount to. We use that figure because that's been our experience in the last 5 years. That's the assumption. We continue to hold the 8 firefighter positions or the fire department positions, fire district positions open, vacant, and unfunded, including the 6 from the bargaining unit. We assume a 7% increase in health insurance because that goes into the personnel cost as well. It's not just salaries that we're talking about. Just as an aside, for every dollar we spend in salaries for a bargaining unit member, or for that matter, almost any other employee in Sedgwick County, there's another 30% that goes on top of that. FICA, workers' comp, pension plan payments. In addition to that, we have to talk about health insurance as well. And the last assumption is we'll replace vehicles in accordance with the district's replacement plan. We have a plan carried out for a number of years about how we're going to replace our vehicles if we keep that in place and the other expenditures go up as well. This is what the result is. It is not a pretty picture. Now, are these numbers valid? We presented these at the fact finder hearing, and the fact finder came to a conclusion that she did not have confidence in our forecasts, in our projections. And the reason that she came to that conclusion is, I think, alluded to a little bit by Mr. Bucati here, is that we tend to do better than what we budget for as a county over year to year. We have done that in the fire district as well. Excuse me. And that is true. We budget conservatively in Sedgwick County. Every one of you gentlemen that have been through the budgeting process knows that is historically true, not only of this commission, but past commissions as well. We will tend to budget a little high on expenditures and tend to budget a little bit low on revenues. But here's the part that's escaped the fact finder, and this is why I think she was wrong in dismissing our dire predictions about what the financial status of the fire district is that there's a difference between a budget and a projection. And again, I have a little bit of an advantage here because I'm preaching to the choir. You all have dealt with these concepts before. You know the difference when you listen to the budget people that have presentations, that there is a difference between what we forecast, what we project, which essentially is our midpoint about what we expect, and that what we budget for, because we will budget conservatively. You budget conservatively for a reason. You budget conservatively as just a matter of common sense, whether you're operating a household or a government or a business. You want to make sure you have enough money in your account that's dedicated for any particular purpose that you're going to be able to cover that needs. So you're going to budget more than you actually think you'll spend and budget a little bit less than you'll actually take in. There's a more practical reason for this, though, and all of you, I think, have become acquainted with this statute. There's KSA 79-2929, which says that if you end up being needing more budget authority during the budget year, if you have not budgeted enough, then you have to go back and recreate the budget process again. That's a statutory requirement. So that's the reason that there is a conceptual difference between budgeting and making projections. But that didn't answer the question. Anybody in this room still has, I think, the right to ask me, Mike, all right, fine. You have people that make these dire projections, these forecasts about what the fire district is going to look like in the future. How do we know that's going to be accurate? And I would answer this in two ways. The first one is, I've all identified the assumptions that we have in all of these forecasts before. You have the right, anybody does, to look at those variables and say to yourself whether we think these are accurate or not. It's not difficult to apply the numbers once you have the variables into place. Ask yourself, is a 1.3% property tax increase projection for the next 5 years right, correct, reasonable, if that's what we've experienced in the last 5 years? And you can do that with the others as well. But see, you don't have to rely upon your own instincts in this regard. You can rely upon history. And here's why I get to this next exhibit that I have on the board here, because what we have done is we have taken the information from the Sedgwick County public budgets between 2012 and 2016. Now, why do I care about that? Well, because the Division of Finance, like other departments here in the county, has to go through a key performance indicator. Stuff that we get to measure to see how accurate and reasonable they have been in the way they have operated their department. Budget makes projections. And as a result of this, we've put together this item here that shows how close they have been in their projections in the past. I will tell you in 2010, where they overestimated the revenue of 4.7%. They're probably not too proud about that one. But if you look at every other item during this five-year period, both expenditures and revenues, they have been amazingly close in their projections. In 1 year in revenue, we underestimated our revenue by 1.1%, but every single item every single year here, on both of these items, they have been within 0.5% of what their projections have been. Our budget office knows what they're talking about. Their budgeting process has been amazingly accurate. Again, there's a difference between budget and forecasts, and the way we have forecasted in the past has been accurate. That is a reason that you can give credibility to the numbers I'm presenting here today about why we have a problem and the financial status of the fire district. Just as a matter of record, because I'll refer to this later on, we take these percentages from the Division of Finance based upon property tax supported funds. The fire district is one of these. We have all of these other tax supported funds as well that we look at. And I know I'm introducing or talking about a concept that all of you are intimately familiar with. We have certain property tax supported funds. The legislature gives us this right, and we impose it itself, that has funds, portions of the ad valorem tax that is specifically dedicated to certain governmental purposes. The county general fund obviously is the big one, but we also have dedicated property tax supported funds for Wichita State to operate our ComCare department, for EMS, and some other departments as well. All of these have been factored into measuring the accuracy of our Finance Department in the past about how their projections have been made. So we've got credibility on these numbers based upon how accurate we have been in the past. Now, we come to the conclusion then. We've got a serious financial problem. We've seen the implications even of both proposals on what the financial situation is going to be in the future. We then get to the next issue. All right, do we have another source of revenue? And here we have heated difference between the bargaining unit and the county, specifically the legal department, about what latitude we have in dipping into the casino. And this is the second reason why I think the fact finder came to a bad conclusion, because when she says that what the bargaining unit is proposing in the way of increases, what she recommends is affordable, it all funnels in to the assumption that we'll be able to tap into casino monies. We think that's legally impermissible. I respect Mr. Bucati a lot. We were in law school at the same time, very distinguished attorney, and I believe him when he says he can read a statute. But we think we have attorneys in our office can read a statute too, and we don't think you can take casino monies and dedicate that for the fire district purpose. And we best base that in 3 steps. First one, what is a fire district? A fire district is technically a different governmental body than the county. We have people probably even in this room that doesn't realize it is actually a different governmental entity. You all are the governing body of the fire district, but it actually exists as a different legal governmental entity than Sedgwick County does as a whole. It has its own taxing authority. It is not only its own governmental body, it has its own taxing authority. That's why it can impose a tax through whatever decisions you all make as a governing body to determine how much of the county taxes out in the fire district go to fire purposes. It has its own taxing authority, and it is its own fund. The second thing, KSA 79-2934 says this, that it prohibits transfer of funds unless specifically provided by law. No part of any fund shall be diverted to any other fund except as provided by law. Now, what's that mean? I told you about all these funds that we have out there, including the fire district. Every one of them has a little bit of a piece of the ad valorem taxes that go on them. By statute, we cannot take, for example, ComCare money and put it into fire district number 1 money. We cannot take Wichita State money. We cannot take those taxes that have been dedicated for that purpose and put it into another fund. We have a state law that says you cannot do this. We have a county general fund, and any revenues that go into that cannot be transferred to the Fire District 1 general fund, or it's against the law. And our position is this makes no difference, because when it says no part of any fund, that means if money goes into Sedgwick County, regardless of whether it is actually tax money or it's some other revenue source, it cannot be transferred to another fund that is established and recognized by statute. And then we get to the third reason why that's not true, and that is when we talk about the gaming statute. The way that we ended up getting some of the casino money, getting a piece of the casino money, just didn't because it grew on a tree. There was legislative action that specifically says when a casino operates in a particular county that there are other governmental entities that get some money.
Production and broadcast costs for Sedgwick County Commission meetings have been underwritten by Sedgwick County. KPTS welcomes comments from the public on its broadcast of the County Commission hearings. Viewers are invited to write to County Commission Broadcast, KPTS 320 West 21st Street, Wichita, Kansas 67203.
Lydia's Kitchen on KPTS Channel 8.
Sewing programs on KPTS.